All right. Good morning, everybody. It is a Monday morning right after daylight not savings. And I'll tell you, I don't even notice the difference anymore. I don't notice the difference because I gave myself an extra hour on Saturday. And that's why I was doing so much of the cooking and figuring stuff out. Because, yeah, I had a lot of hours to do that. And then on Sunday, yesterday, I felt so good that I went and helped my husband with the leaves. And I hadn't done that, been out there doing yard work at all the last 3 years. This is the first time in the last 3 years. And so that means that the last 3 years, see, 2019, I think we bought this house 2019 in February, and then that's when the pandemic kicked off and things were going crazy, and so I was feeling it like a lot, and so I let my husband do all the yard work, and I just stayed in the house and did what I did. But yesterday I really felt great to do stuff, and I did, and then I took a nap right afterwards because I was really spent. and so I have now an awesome routine. I have an awesome routine that now it's finally everything. My immune system is online the way it's supposed to. I eat food. I don't have to eat as much food. I'm pretty I guess I'm pretty organized in future thinking and streamlining, everything and simplifying everything. And I'm trying to simplify my life here and get my husband online with simplifying stuff so that way he's not working himself to death and all that. So, and I'm also getting everything figured out with the outline of my next book. And it's going to take a few years to write it because there's just so many assumptions, the things I have to think about that doesn't come up at the time, and then they do come up, and it's worth exploring and talking about. And of course, Greek mythology, Greek history, the human condition, psychology, the wars, the food supply, all the activism, and every story out there. Every story, whether it's the Bible, whether it's before Genesis, whether it's the Old Testament, the New Testament, and where we're going, where we've been, what we're doing right now. And it's just like, okay. And where the system wants to go, where the system wants to take us. We went from being a really rudimentary, basic type of human that is basically a petri dish. Every community, every culture was like its own petri dish to be studied, to be manipulated, to be influenced, to be developed. And that's why we have 8 billion people and then projected 12.9 billion. And we're also watching Africa go through their own growing pains. So going back to 1955, where, it's going to be the woman's going to stay at home. She's going to raise the kids. She might even go further, even beyond that, and be on her knees serving her husband. But, okay, if that's where they have to take it, where the man is king over there in Africa in some households, and the woman is queen and also the caretaker and bowing down to her husband, that's going to happen until they go through their own evolution. But every society has to come from a very basic background of order and then evolution. And it's painful to watch the beginning of order and then evolution and change. And so that's why I'm so glad that Facebook exists, because we can look at not only the people in the world that we live in, what they're doing, and explore what other people are doing without attacking them. But we can also look at other nations and what kind of cultures are being applied to them as they evolve and come up to the level of the rest of the world. And so I was making so many different, I was making a lot of different observations. Like a lot. The last few days. I'm glad I took the 2 days off that I did, so that way I can explore those observations, because some of them are going to challenge people's perception. It's going to challenge, if you think about what happened in the caveman days, when you have a caveman and someone that's more evolved and maybe more civilized than the caveman go and challenge your tradition of living in a cave and say, hey, instead of living in a cave, why don't you live in this house that has an outhouse and a table and a chair and a place to go and chop wood and a place to go and butcher animals and grow, food in this garden. And the caveman's like, no, I want to just, do what I do as a caveman. Can you imagine that point of transition when someone challenges the way you do things? Now, some people say, well, I like what you do and I want to do it just like you and I want to do it better. Others are like, why should I change? Screw you. And so what's going on today with even me exploring ideas that would challenge someone's belief system about relationships and humans, imagine what happened, 6,000, 7,000 years ago. So I was in my head, as I was releasing the demons this morning, I was putting together everything that I was in my head, trying to organize what I was going to talk about. Because sometimes when I'm in the shower, and I'm thinking like, what am I going to talk about today, just to get these things out? And I forget what it is I said. Sometimes I go to my Facebook and remind me. But then it's getting easier to remember what I said, even ever since Friday, without having to go to Facebook to remind me. And I'm thinking like, oh yeah, that's right. It was the Narcissus Activism, Pandora, and the obelisks, and the vaccines, and the information, the cultures, bacteria, viruses, parasites, protozoa, protein, fungus, and bacteria, penis, hieroglyphics, symbols, obelisks. And that's why you see with those monuments, especially in Egypt, those monuments with all those symbols, that's no different than a vaccine. The vaccine has so much information. Those symbols are equal information. That's data. That's telling a story. That's a culture, okay, of the time. So you can imagine what the vaccines is telling you a story. It's the data of the culture of the time. And then a penis is attached to a guy who represents the culture, the data, and the information of the time. And then even when you get into like non-binary or binary or whatever relationships where it's like woman or man, and they're sticking things in you to develop, and then they're whispering stuff. So that's information. As they're sticking something in you, that's information of the data and the culture of the time. And so anything that penetrates a person, whether it's a scalpel, a vaccine, a penis, oh gosh, any kind of colonoscopy, anything that people are going and exploring, doing exploratory type of stuff, that's information, culture, data of the time. And so then what I'm proposing, now that I understand I don't say the need, but the reason for vectors. What's a vector? It's something that has a specific force with information behind it that processes information. Now I understand that the reason for vectors, which would be like the vaccines, a penis, or a turkey baster, or all the different, surgeries of penetration. Then I'm thinking like, well, I can also take in information through eating the food supply. That's a vector, and that's food, and then allows my immune system to distribute the information and process it. So as long as I support it. Then I realize that when I'm breathing in, and there's a force of wind, that's like a vector when you think about it, and I'm breathing in all the information, no different than some kind of vaccine or some kind of obelisk that has information, whether it's solid or air. It's all chemistry, where you get an air vector or you get a solid vector or you get a human vector. It's all information coming in. And then you realize that all the vectors out there that were forced on people then also did cause damage to those that were trying to resist the information. And so it becomes very abstract versus very literal, but we have a society that works from literal that then has a hard time with abstract concepts, because they would have to really switch their thinking from one way to another. And if you haven't studied everything, it's very difficult to switch your thinking from allegory, story, and then understanding what information is, what data is, what cultures and bacteria are, and then what was the point of our societies. And that was all for experimentation. It was all planned. Everything is planned. Nothing is organic when you think about it. That's why the system watches over everybody, because they don't want something organic to happen, because then if that organic situation happens the way it was intended to happen, it could mean all out extinction. And so that's why you have somebody else then regulate the death versus the life. And that's why the system regulated the influential people, regulated influential proteins. They regulated influential ideas so it doesn't become so overwhelming that it destroys. And then you understand what the role of your government is, what the role of all the balancing forces, the ego and the id, the positive and the negative, probiotic, antibiotic, and then people's intentions. Okay? And then you realize, oh wow, Neo, Matrix, right? Don't ever get caught up. Well, here's Neo and Matrix. What's Neo? The one doesn't mean like the one like Jesus Christ or Yahweh or an Allah or Mohammad or any one specific person like Einstein or Oppenheimer, I think. Yeah. I get confused with the real estate company and the guy that developed, like, what is it? The atom bomb. Or not developed, but yeah, associated with Einstein. So you have all these great thinkers at the time that are like the one. Okay, yes, Einstein was the one during his time. Maybe he'd be one today, but he's dead. But he's just one of many ideas. Newton's law of physics, Copernicus, everyone that's in politics, religion, science are like, oh, like, he's the one, let's worship him. He's the one, let's worship him. And it's just like no different than me focusing on one or two specific concepts at a time, and then I'm moving on to the next thing. I'm not going back and staying in prostaglandins. I was studying prostaglandins for so many months, and even studying candida for so many months, and then studying parasites and viruses for so many months. But then you have to move on from that. You don't just stay stuck in viruses or parasites or protozoa or proteins or fungus or bacteria. You don't stay stuck in just candida. You don't stay stuck in just GMO. Okay? It's like, it's now what the Matrix is when you think about the movies is, are you the one to survive your friends and family? You're in a war. You're not only in a microbial war, you're in a Hunger Games. That's why they developed a family, to see who's going to be the strongest one out of that family. And you could have 50 people in your family and 49 of them died and the one left standing. Or there are none of them left, or none of them left standing. Maybe some genetic lines are gone, you would never know it because they're not here. But you see the other ones that come up, where do they come up? Well, we're all derived from a base of humans way back more than 10,000, 20,000, whenever the first human came around here. Because even if they replenished from an actual 100% mass extinction, those humans came from somewhere, came from someplace, right? And so no matter what, are you the one to survive your politics, religion, and science, your friends and your family, your community? Are you the one to survive it? That's what Neo is. It's not one person or two people or five people that you worship. Are you going to be the one to survive your belief system and the people that you have cloned yourself around? Are you going to survive their belief system, which is yours? Because remember, we're looking in the mirror all the time. Always look in the mirror, because, yeah, people surround themselves by those who are like-minded. They circulate in groups. They have a following of like-minded people, a Narcissus. They always have the mirror in front of them to keep reinforcing who they are, who they think they are. And so this morning, I'll go down my timeline and just go through each one individually. But this morning I was getting so annoyed at seeing all these people that are like flying their flag of war on their page. And I understand why people fly flags of colors, why they fly flags, why they put, their religion or politics or science, as their main profile pic. What is mine, by the way? Let me see what mine is. Oh, yeah, it's just my face. Okay, I stand for myself. I don't have a flag I don't have any kind of political thought process. I mean, do I even have, I don't even have like, save the earth type of thing. I stand for myself. And when I stand for myself of life and longevity, I stand for humanity, I stand for life, I stand for the earth. Because without earth, there's no me. Now, is it without me, is there no earth? Well, if I have a belief system that I'm going to die someday, then without me, there will be no earth. Because without humans, there's no earth. What do you mean? If humans all died, there wouldn't be any earth because the earth wouldn't exist. What do you mean it wouldn't exist? Because earth is a word based upon chemical reactions. But if you don't see something, does it really exist? Well, I mean, the word earth means that there's something in existence that 8 billion, 9 billion have supported and influenced. But when no human exists, then there's no word for earth, so earth doesn't exist. It's just a thing. Earth is a word that's given by humans to tell them what world they're living on. But without any humans, you don't have earth. You just have a ball or a flat thing. It's all relative to how you want to perceive it. Okay? And so I stand for myself. I don't stand for anything but myself, and then therefore I stand for earth. For the existence of it, I stand for the existence of life. I stand for the existence of relative peace and harmony. I stand for the existence of longevity. And I don't play the game of playing sides. I really don't. I did. You saw me. And then that's where wars get sustained and begin. When you don't understand the opposite point of view or the other point of views. And so when I see people flying these flags of countries that they don't even belong to. I mean, I can understand if you're in a country like America and you fly your American flag, okay, but there's so many assumptions around American flag. And it's all based upon which side of the spectrum you stand on in America. And then people make assumptions and there's a war. So even flying a flag then declares war on somebody else. Oh gosh. I mean, if I'm going to fly a flag in my country, if I'm flying any flag, it would be the flag of America. But I'm not saying I'm like not loyal. Of course I am. But I also know the assumptions around America too. So I'm not trying to meet somebody's assumption and have their point of view of America be reconfirmed by the fact that I'm flying a flag that has so many different assumptions around it. And no different than flying the Israeli flag or flying the Palestinian flag or flying the French flag. I mean, why don't you put yourself on your Facebook and stand for yourself? But no, it's always somebody flying some other type of person's face or flying a flag or flying a political thought process or an activist stance. Okay? So don't ever get caught up in the middle of a family dispute, because that's when you're flying flags and you're flying activist stance and you're flying something. You're getting caught up in you're getting caught up in the middle of a family dispute, and you'll end up with egg on your face. And people are, but they don't live to tell about it because they die suddenly. And people are being used as a tool. Go look at your Facebook. Whether it's the medical holistic industry, whether it's taking a side in a war, in a political thought process, in a religion, or in some scientific dogma, they're being used as a tool. They are a weapon of war. When you're taking a side against one thing or another, when you're promoting, some kind of remedy for a situation, what's a remedy when you're trying to destroy the life of that situation? And so, a holistic person, an allopathic person, and a surgeon and all that stuff is no different than someone flying the Palestinian or even the Israeli flag, because you're trying to remedy a situation with your point of view, with your side. You're being used as a tool to cause then a war that's going to be sustained until the strongest man wins. And when you are entering into somebody else's war, I don't care what it is, you won't survive it because you have no idea what's involved. You're entering into a war with very minimal amount of information, and then you'll be a casualty of that war. Now look at all the activists. They're becoming casualties of the war. They have no idea what the fuck they entered into, but they took on somebody else's war and made it their own. But they wouldn't know about the war if someone didn't tell them, oh, you should enter into this war. Air is poison. Food is poison. Water is poison. This person's the enemy. And so when you fly any flag, you take a side, and you take on all the assumptions when you take a side. And so let me be clear. Let me clear up all the assumptions and let that family work out their differences in the world court. So that's when I posted that trifecta of there's Israel, and they're peaceful, but they have to be peaceful through having to regulate and stop the RPGs from coming over the goddamn fence. That's why they have the Iron Dome or something. Okay, so I put the Israel's peaceful, then I put Hamas, who's so angry, and I don't even know where their anger comes from, but you have to ask them, and if they tell you the real truth, who knows if you can get even close to them. Okay, so you have Israel, you have Hamas, they're the two parents, and you have Palestine stuck in the middle. You know when you see in family court, you see the husband and the wife, or the wife and the wife, the husband and husband, and they're fighting over the kids and the assets. And these kids are sitting in watching their parents flinging mud at each other. That's what it's like. Because they entered into a war, they made a kid, and now who's the one that's the enemy in that family? Who's the one that doesn't care about that kid? Who's the one that'll take care of that kid better than the other, you know? And you don't know. You gotta let them fight it out. And let the justice system figure it out. And they don't always get it right, but what do you do if you can't figure it out on your own? But the system's not gonna let you destroy the other person and then have the kids be destroyed in the same time, so then they have to go and figure out how to take a side. Okay, so I put in there, Palestine is stuck in the middle. The Palestinians are stuck in the middle between someone who has planted themselves and used them as a tool and a shield as part of their arsenal, and they don't give a shit. The other, let's say the father is Hamas and the mother is Israel. And the father's like, I don't care if my kids are being used. I'll use my kid as a tool. And people do leverage their children all the time. They use their kid as a weapon. How many families out there that are dealing with custody disputes, and the father is using that kid as a weapon, or the mother is leveraging her position by using that kid? That's what Hamas is doing. They're using the Palestinians as a leveraging position. Israel's like, what the fuck? Okay? You're watching an acrimonious divorce and somebody is using the children as a weapon, as a leveraging point. And then now you're taking sides and you have no idea believe me, if you would have lived in Israel for how many years they have to live with people that hate them next door, you wouldn't be taking a side. You would have to figure out that, damn, that's a family dispute that you really have no say in. Just like when you go to family court, you gotta watch them play it out. You gotta watch it all play out. And the kids are gonna suffer, absolutely. How many kids suffer under so much crazy ass divorce? So many do. And they're gonna have to survive. Some do and some don't. Some can make their lives better from that situation. Others will go and destroy others because they lived that situation. And yeah. And so then I was bringing in the Georgia Guidestones, some of the tenets of like, let me clear up all assumptions and let the family work out their differences in the world court. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Okay? Now you're seeing the Georgia Guidestones coming in and actively transitioning to be implemented, because eventually that's going to happen. But we're going to have to go to wars with who knows who and when and how. But if no one's coming into your house, no one's forcing you to do anything. And then why would you declare war on someone 6,000 miles away, or even 2 miles away, or even next door? Take care of your own backyard. Be angry at yourself. And so you have to be smarter than those who are attacking you, because those who are attacking you are so fucking emotional that you have to be strategic. In my country, if you don't like someone who you're not supposed to attack them, or you'll go to jail. When it comes to a country right next to you that hate your guts, you have to be so much stronger than those who are attacking you. You have to be so much strategic. I've been given all the tools in the West that if I choose to be attacked and take those attacks and entertain being attacked, then that's my choice. Because that means I let in the messages. I let the people, I don't block and delete. I don't find ways to protect myself from whatever. I don't call the police. Oh, I'll believe me. If people are fuck with me, I'll call the police, call whoever. Okay? And so I have the luxury of authority to help regulate an out of control situation. I have the luxury of a court system to regulate something that is convoluted and emotional and illogical. And that's why you have a judge like Judge Judy and all that to go and figure out where the emotions are, who's at fault, who's not. That's why those court shows are so important to see, is that way you can see the emotions that people bring into a situation and then make their assumptions. Even myself, I had to go through that process. It was a hellish process, but it was necessary. It was a lesson. And then you learn the inner workings of a court system. And you figure not everything is black and white. Just because you feel something doesn't mean that somebody owes you something, right? And so I have the luxury to develop an arsenal of information in my head to then defend against all the defamation. I have the luxury to go and Google things, to go and look up definitions, to go and iron out my thought process so that way I can fight words with words. But you don't make accusations when you think about it because you can't prove it, really. I mean, you could try, but it would have to stand up in a court of law. But I can make assertions. I can develop hypotheses and theories. And then I don't even need to troll people. I don't need to try to convert them. And then you realize in the religious part of the world, the really extreme religious people, they want to convert you. That's the trolling. But they do it through hate or they do it through love. That's why I get really anxious around those who are all love, 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 and hate, hate, hate. Because they're trying to eat you up, eat you alive through their love and hate. Or they give you so many gifts to go and buy your affections, buy your conversion. Okay? Right? So why I have the luxury to live in the West with Facebook and with my local government and my national government to be able to develop a defense without destroying somebody else through logic, civility, and calm. Well, I don't say calm. That's amazing to develop. But I have the luxury to develop the logic and the civility through a calm demeanor once I release those demons. And I'm allowed to bring out ideas that could potentially help the human race and even shine a light on things that they never wanted to shine a light on because everything is taboo. Not everything, but a lot of things are taboo. It's not to be discussed. It's too icky. It's too challenging. It's too, ooh, no, that's too much information, Jillian. Well, so many people don't get enough information, so they make assumptions. Things that happen behind closed doors people don't talk about. And so then there's abuse that happens. So that's what I'm saying. In Africa, they're going through their own evolution of the 1950s all the way to 1998. Okay, because you get all the acrimonious attacks with not too much regulation, but there is now. But back when we were doing AOL, people were attacking each other, in the chat rooms, abusing each other because they could. It was like, oh my God, I can say stuff and no one's going to regulate it. But then there's terms and conditions or terms of service. They're like, oh, if you violate the terms of service, you get tossed out. That was the acronym that was used way back in 1998. TOS. Remember that? Because I was doing the 1998 AOL chat rooms. I was like, oh my God, wow, you can say whatever. It was such a freedom. Well, imagine. And so then there's that. So there's that evolution that Africa's going to go through. And then you're gonna watch the evolution of them going through the 1950s and through all of that, the growing process, the growing pains. And then you're gonna watch people in the West go through the same thing that Africa is going through. And so, yeah, and they're going through their own shit. Okay, but now we get to watch people deal with the baser level instincts of attacking and screwing things and talking about boobs and this and that. I mean, when you realize that that's really the baser level instincts of way back 6,000 years ago, everything about boobs and vagina and dick and all that stuff. And that's most of right now, even the guys on Facebook and even girls, all about sex to them. Now you're looking at Africa and other places that are coming online that are baser level, and that's how they interact. Everything's based upon sex, boobs and penetration and vagina and children. And then they hate you if you don't look like a certain sexual orientation. And then there's attacks, and that's what happened back then. It's no different than what's going on today. And even some countries, you're seeing how they operate as they're coming online and they're trying to interact with the West, and they come on trying to act like they're a Lothario, and they say, "Oh, your Facebook is so gorgeous, and you have such amazing things to say, and I want to be your friend. Do you want a friend request?" And I'm just like, "Oh God, I'm done with something." And so they're told how to interact with us, but even us in the first world, like, no. Sorry, I'm not playing this. You're laying it on thick, trying to compliment me to death. No, that's not going to happen either. Okay? And so, yeah, so you're seeing even some of the humans that are coming online, and even humans in America, figure out how to evolve and interact. And some of them are going to be very aggressively sexual. Aggressively, because that's what they were taught. That was the baser level instincts of the caveman 20,000 years ago. And some haven't evolved. And some have. And the ones that haven't evolved hate those that have, because they're different. You're introducing something different. That's not how it's going to always be. Everything's about sex and fornication and wealth and baubles. That sometimes now we got to look at the longevity of humanity. And yeah, sex and love and all that stuff and hatred has developed evolution in people, but it also could be the pathway to extinction. And it will be for some. That's what Universe 25 was trying to prove, was that all that rampant reproduction and begin given everything will then weed out the weakest links. When you fuck the weakest people out of existence, the strong end up the ones that's standing. Okay, so I get the luxury of being able to develop and evolve without being harmed by those who hate evolution. And if there is a credible threat, the system will figure out how to deal with that. But imagine what Israel has to go through. When it comes to a country right next to you that hates your guts, you have to be so much stronger than those who are attacking you. And then people misunderstand the dynamics, and then they think you're the aggressor when you're actually defending yourself. And people walk into the middle of arguments and make their stupid assumptions all the time. Or someone says, "Hey, come and join my argument and take my side." And they give you some, story that doesn't give you all the information. But they're using you as a mercenary, as a tool. Then you know who are the haters out there, just looking for an invitation and a reason to hate you and blame you for everything. Looking for a reason I hate you because of their own fucked up life. That's talk to text shit. And you know how I know this? Because I lived it. Remember, I was just doing my thing in my group. I was, have my moderators, and we're talking about stuff, and they were doing the jilly juice, and people are feeling their stuff, and they're feeling great, and all this, and all of a sudden, that happened. It was me disputing with my moderators. They were trying to take over. I'm like, no, let everybody in. They're like, no, only let the conspiracy people in. I'm like, what the fuck? And so then there's that. And then they turned against me. And then it was the trolls. Okay? And then people walking in while I'm dealing with my trolls and all the hatred and all of them with their fake accounts posting like conversations that I never took part in, saying that I was doing this and this. Okay, doing videos about. I mean, that's what I'm saying. People are walking into the middle to make me sound like I'm some crazy. No, I'm just. You don't know where it started, but let me tell you, people jumped on the bandwagon and they took a side, and they have no idea how it even began. They weren't even there when I'm telling my moderators, let everybody in. They're like, no, only the conspiracy. Screw the mainstreamers. I'm like, the mainstreamers deserve to hear this information. That's who I'm trying to talk. Why preach to the choir? And that was always my thing. Why preach to the choir? Because we only want to save. If their perception is really just saving the world or saving those who are being destroyed by the mainstream. And they're like, well, we don't want to let the mainstream in. We want to destroy them so they don't get this information and only cater to the conspiracy. And that's where it all went fucking awry. And that's when the government was called in. That's when everyone was thinking Jillian's fucking Satan. Because they didn't know how it began. They have no idea what the genesis of that whole situation was. And it was an internal dispute. It was between me and my moderators. I kicked them out for a reason. It was my world. But I kicked them out for a reason, and then they turned. Well, of course they did. As soon as I disputed with people who I was trying to figure out. But that was what then developed the evolution. That war developed the evolution. Oh, it was painful for on either side. Painful for them, because they're dealing with shit that they weren't expecting. Or they were, who knows. Because we were talking about all of our symptoms. We told you what you were going to feel. But it was painful for me, because I had to go and figure out how to defend myself. And, of course, I had my own demons. And so then you don't know. You walk, and then you have people, these new people who are seeing stuff that's going on based upon what they've seen from me and what they were told from me. And they didn't know all the information prior to that. And so then they take a side. And then I get these death threats. Then I get people who are like, oh, you're a horrible person. You're this, you're that. And then I go on Dr. Phil. And that's where the train left the station. Okay? So how do I know this? I lived it. And when you live that situation, now you understand why wars are forced to happen. Because then you gotta let it play out. And the system, and that's why I went to the FBI, and that's why they, instead of them ignoring my claims, and I sent them the email and I sent them all that stuff of who was contacting me, and they could have been like, okay, whatever. But they eventually did contact me months later. I think I put in that claim, or that, I don't say claim, what is it? That complaint, like in November, and I think it was around the springtime that they finally brought me in. It was like, okay, what the hell? Because they don't know. I could have been the aggressor on their end. Anytime someone complains doesn't mean that they're innocent. They have to go and figure out really what's going on. And so, anyways, okay, so now you understand why wars are forced to happen. You have to let it play out and let the system figure out how to manage and regulate that situation. Because no matter what, evolution is painful. But are you following the guidelines of the law? Are you following all the different things with advertising? Are you and even are you correct in your assertions? Okay? And so that's why we have all the different rules and regulations and the law, because that's what brings order. Or else you're going to have people destroying each other through all the remedies, making all these claims. But here's the thing, that's the intention on one end, without being obvious, but they want to give people a time to redirect. So if you're going to make claims that you want to take someone's pain away, which basically is taking their life away, it's got to be FDA approved. So you give that person a chance to redirect. But in the holistic world, there's no regulation, really. People are like, oh, here, take all this elderberry syrup and all this turmeric and honey, and can you OD on that? Well, you develop all these offspring inside the body that's eating you up on the inside. You could always get away from your remedies and stop taking them. But when it comes to pharmaceutical grade, those are really aggressive. Those are by prescription only. And that has a lot more influence than some herbal remedy, though in a higher frequency environment, now herbal remedies can act like a pharmaceutical grade because of the frequencies are making those things so much stronger, which things, the herbal remedies, so much stronger. And now you see people are like sucked dry. Their life force is sucked dry from all the offspring from those remedies. Okay? So anyways, I don't know, I was getting away. I was getting on a tangent. All right, so you don't want to make claims. That's why there's law and order. And that's why the government had to step in at some point. And I completely understood that. Let me tell you, when I was talking to the FTC guy, and he was like, you really believe that that's the system is trying to like silence you and do all this other shit. And like, I was going through my whole conspiracy shit diatribe to that Federal Trade Commission agent. He was just like, you really seriously believe this? And I'm thinking like, I remember that. And then that's when I realized, oh shit, I'm trying to sell a cure that really isn't a cure. You don't want to be cured. Then I realized I don't want to be selling cures. And I realized you can't be pain-free in a society that's very evolutionary and highly diverse in a high frequency environment. And so I realized the system was always right. But again, you have so many stories out there and so many ways to perceive and characterize things. Then you got to bring in science and logic and mythology and religion. I'll tell you, you really have to go down not only all the rabbit holes, but you have to actually study the things that they offer in these high-level colleges like Oxford and Cambridge, Berkeley, Stanford. And that's when I was listening to all those YouTube videos from Stanford that was offering classes. Well, not classes, but recordings of classes. So you can at least introduce yourself to college-level language and what they're covering. And I was listening to some about my modernity. But I had no idea what I was listening to, really. But the word modernity was one of the words that I learned back in 2011. And that's through the studying of like ancient civilizations and their influence through the evolution of the West. And so I just studied stuff just to hear the words. And I didn't understand what the hell I was listening to. I didn't even understand the premise of it. But you still just listen to it just because eventually down the road, if you keep studying, it'll all make sense when you make the connections. But you can't just stay stuck in one area. You have to study everything. And that requires time. That requires a sound mind and a clearer mind. That requires a lot that a lot of people don't have to give. And that's why they get stuck in their compartmentalized world. And then they take a side and they start a war or they sustain a war. And that's why the system is regulating through the environment. And if you can't evolve, you'll run your hamster wheel until there's nothing left. As you take your drugs and all your different diets and your herbs and your extracts and your surgeries and your operations, and the system will regulate your speech and regulate your mannerisms, regulate whatever, until you choose to finally pass away from the last protocol that then turns you into hospice because the system can't treat you anymore. And it's through your own choice. That's the freedom of the West, is you choose at your own hand to destroy yourself and your family line. And so I understand how I know all this stuff about haters out there walking to the middle of an argument, because I lived it. And when you live that situation, now you understand why the wars are forced to happen, and that's where evolution comes from. That's why you'd be grateful living in the West, because you can imagine living next door to someone who wants to destroy you whenever they get a chance. You know, Israel doesn't have the luxury of block and delete. They don't have the luxury of that. They have to develop block and delete. So they block, they use the Iron Dome. But even then, when you get hit by so many RPGs, so many per hour, some do get in. Okay? People force others to block and delete them because of their lack of boundaries and their hatred. And you know as well as I, you see it all over Facebook. I mean, my block list is so high because we have bred people who are so fucking intolerant, and you're forced to do that. People hate me, right? They hate me, and they don't even know why. I didn't do anything to them, but they hate me so much. I didn't do anything to them. That's just crazy. And so then when they like some of my stuff, and then I friend request them, because I'm like, hey, I know you didn't like me in the past. I friend request them. They don't want to be my friend. You know why? Because they're probably feeling guilty for taking on such an aggressive side that they didn't know the full story. And being friends with me would mean that they'd be forced to look at that every day, that they talk so much smack. Other people that talk smack into me, they accepted my friend request, and we're past that. And it's fine, no big deal. There are others who hated me so much and trolled the fuck out of me for so much, for such a long time. And I'm like, hey, that's fine, I get it. I'm not going to hold anything against you. They don't want to be my friend. Why is that? Because they're ashamed of their own bullshit. And I get it. I totally understand it. It's tough to look at yourself in your own reflection. That's Narcissus. They love and hate their reflection. Imagine what it's like for Israel. Imagine what it's like for someone who's different. Imagine being so angry that you want to destroy somebody else. I also lived that as well. People are so angry at me, and me being so angry at them because they were angry at me, it gets out of control. And when people are so angry because of their own fucked up situation, then they project and blame everyone who looks like the enemy. See, now I'm totally psychoanalyzing everybody, but yeah, I came from a psychoanalysis background. It's not a bad thing they came from a because you have to understand what drives humans. And the only way they can do that is if they get into your mind. They get into your body, into your spirit. If you don't know any better, then you'll allow someone to psychoanalyze you and mess with you and whatever, and then they can control you. Okay? But when you become smart and you understand yourself, then you understand other people, then you realize why it's necessary for psychoanalysts out there, why it's necessary for psychotherapists out there, why it's necessary for the medical system. Because some people cannot control the life in their body, they cannot control their reactions, they cannot control their belief systems, and so then they need to be psychotherapized. And that's how the system was able to control humans up to a certain point until they upped the information or upped the frequencies and saw what humans could be capable of if they were given all the energy. And you're seeing it right now, and that's when you realize that you need to understand psychology so you get who the fuck you're in bed with and who's in your society, and you protect yourself. The fact I came from with my dad, chemical engineering background and a psychotherapy and a law background with my mother and my father gave me so much understanding of the world I lived in. Without that background, I'd be like everybody else, trying to defend against some invisible enemy. And you are the enemy. You hold all of that crap inside. People doing all these things to try to ward off the enemy, you hold it inside. You attract all the demons around in your world. Okay, how many orbs you see around me right now? Remember a year ago or so, and you saw the orbs flying around me like crazy? Yeah, I was attracting them. You know why? I still had a bunch of shit left inside of me that needed to come out. But do you see them around now? I don't see too many of them. I barely see it. Even the last couple of days, the last couple of weeks, the last month, I saw a few. Then the last frequency shift, I felt whatever, released the demons. And now I don't see any orbs around me. I'm not attracting demonic energy around me. But if you have to use things to ward off evil spirits, maybe you're the one that is attracting them. And you're not even realizing that because you just hold so much diversity within. Okay? And people do things to protect themselves and do all types of things, energy healing, chemical, whatever. You're basically trying to run away from yourself, and you can't. You bring every demonic energy to the situation. You're projecting. That's the main thing of this whole fucking transmission, is that we are the ones that bring every single issue to every situation. We're the ones that bring the demons into the situation. We're the ones that we're the ones that cause people to develop all the protocols. Until you can acknowledge it, you are the one that brings every single fucked up situation into your situation. You're the one that brings in all the demons to your world. You're the one that brings in all the cancer, disease, and chronic illness to your world. You're the one that surrounds yourself by people who bring up the demons in you. Until you acknowledge that, you will always think you have to protect yourself from other people. I just walk away. I don't hang out. When I don't hang out with other people, I don't look at my reflection. Because people do hate on their reflection. And they even hate on me. And I know how people think. I'm a representation of whatever they think. And so that's why, it's like I just take myself out of situations. I know who I am. And I know I conflict with the way others do stuff because I'm pointing out what I do and what they do too. And so then how do I alleviate attracting demons? I clear all the demons out of my body, mind and spirit. I sit in my own neighborhood, my own head, because I've finally made it safe. And I don't go around people who still have the demons within. Not that it's bad, but they have their own shit to figure out. It's not for me to go make their life better or worse or be in distraction with. My husband, he does his job. I hung out with him this weekend. We're actually on the same page now, finally. Fuck! On so many different levels. But I think he finally gets now where I'm coming from in certain situations. And I still meet him halfway in other situations. But I'll tell you, that was a fight. What is that? I'm not going into great detail. You can only imagine. But it's taken 12 years. So I'll tell you, women and men are so heavily programmed, and they make things mean something based upon what someone does do and what they don't do. And then you have to keep reminding people there's so many different ways to show love and respect. And there's so many ways to figure out how to further oneself without cannibalizing somebody else. Not everyone's going to get all of the different ways, but at least if you're going to be in a relationship with someone or something, you have to renegotiate those contracts so you're not being cannibalized by somebody else's demonic energy. And you release those demons out of your body, because you will attract, when you hold so many demons within, you will attract them. And then you'll resent them. But you hold them inside, you attracted them for a reason. And then now you're trying to do protection against them? That's why humans have issues with other humans, because they don't like themselves. They are the ones that brought up every fucked up situation in their life. They're the ones that attracted the situation. And so it gets out of control when people are so angry because of their own messed up situation. Then they project and blame everyone who looks like the enemy. Basically them. Now look at your Facebook. Everyone blaming somebody for their own fucked up life. Why don't you look at your own life and be angry at yourself? Because that is classic Narcissus. When people fall in love with their own image and they attack anything that doesn't live within their image or acts like them, and they don't like that. And so that's the thing. When you stop surrounding yourself with people out there, they're just like you, then you'll stop looking in the mirror and you'll deal with yourself. When you go on Facebook and you get mad at people, it's because you're looking at yourself and you don't like seeing yourself like that. And so you deal with yourself, and then you figure out why is it you don't like that the way, because that's how you were. You were just in that same mode. You were blaming, you were trying to gather followers, you're developing wars. It's so abstract. All of us are living a Greek tragedy right now. Recognize your own tragedy in your own world. Then you understand why wars are forced to happen. Why do people die? They fell in love with their own image, and they die in their own image. They fell in love with and surrounded themselves around people who reinforce that image. That's why I don't hang out with too many people. And even on Facebook, I have maybe 1,000 friends, maybe 1,000 followers, give or take. Yeah, that's fine with me. Okay, and I don't really require too many likes, because everything that I post is going to challenge somebody's belief system about love, sex, and marriage, and children, and cancer, disease, and chronic illness. Everything I'm saying. Not maybe a few people like this stuff, which is fine because you get it. Others won't dare, because that would then force them to look at or be on display. Oh, so you believe what Jillian believes in? Oh. Or they don't want to be known that they're looking at my information. So no, I don't get a lot of likes, but you don't want a lot of likes in your stuff. When you start getting so many likes, where you're having 150, 200, 1,000 likes, then you're classic Narcissus. You'll never challenge yourself or your audience, because you don't have the capacity to. You're looking for someone to reinforce your image. And so I have people look at my stuff, but they won't like it because it's challenging. That's when you know you finally broke the mold. When you can still, when you're not destroying other people, but people don't like you because you're now forcing them to look at their sexual practices, the way they look at their children, the way they deal with their children, the way they deal with each other, their religion, their politics, their science. And when you're putting a mirror up to people who've always projected how it's everyone else's fault but their own, and you're saying, hey, you really want to put that dildo in you? Really? Is that what you think that's what love is sticking shit in you? You think that's what love is letting someone just screw you to death? I think that's what love is someone buying you shit? I think that's what love is drinking yourself to death, doing drugs yourself to death, making everyone happy, and not taking care of yourself? You think that's what longevity is? And someone challenges someone's reality about that, and they're like, wow. And you think, you're so afraid of genetically modified, but yet you're going to go and have strange ass and kiss somebody and eat all orifices of their body because you think that's what love and connection and whatever is, and you're eating human proteins. You're against cannibalism, but you're eating human proteins, strange human proteins. When people get together, they didn't know each other. They didn't come from the same family, but you're not supposed to fuck your family, right? So you have to fuck a stranger. And it's not like, oh, missionary and stuff. Not like you marry them, and even then, you're still a stranger. You're still a strange ass until you become familiar. And you have a problem with genetically modified? See what I'm saying? So when someone puts that kind of mirror up to people's faces and they're like, oh my God, that's so like crass, that's so uncouth. Yeah, you don't talk about it, because when you don't talk about it, then you can blame somebody else for why you have a disease, why you have evolutionary issues. You don't look at what you've done the last 40, 50, 60 years of your life and all your activist stance and saying it's everybody else's fault, you got to protect yourself from the demons. But maybe you're the fucking demon. Oh my God. Maybe you're the one that keeps sustaining all this caveman behavior. Right? And so that's why people surround themselves by like-minded folks, because they have to reinforce that image. Narcissus fell in love with the image. Narcissus then died from reinforcing that image because he died from starvation and from despair and starvation. And now look at those who are elderly. They couldn't change. They fell in love with their image, and now they're dying in the image that they've tried to cultivate and keep around forever, and then say everybody else is the enemy out there. That's Greek tragedy. That's why I posted the picture of the witches. Women who look beautiful, fell in love with their image of beauty, doing the plastic surgery, the Botox, all the energy healing shit, wearing the clothes, as their body starts deteriorating because they can try to keep that image going through all the cures and the operations, and they turn into Wicked Witch of the East and the West. And it's still everyone else's fault. It's still, oh, watch out, danger. But you're the one that's reinforcing that danger of extinction. And the people are selling each other all the protection from themselves. How do you sell someone? Well, I used to ask them. Selling someone protection against their own self. That's like, what? But that's humans. That's fucking humans. And so why do people die? They fell in love with their own image, and they die in their own image. They fell in love with and surround themselves around people who reinforce that image. And then hate others. And then hate others for challenging their image. That's why Israel's armed to the teeth. They have to deal with people who are in love with their own image, who are willing to die for their image. Suicide bombers. They're willing to die for their own image. Just like the what do you call those people that fly the planes into the ships? kamikaze fighters. And so when you think about what happened in 9/11, if you're to believe the story, the actual official story that it was, and it's probably true and on some level, I mean, it could be a hologram, but when you think about the allegory about 9/11, if they were suicide bombers, like Muslim suicide bombers, that's exactly what they would do. No different than the kamikaze pilots, the Japanese that flew their planes right into the ships back in World War II. And so even 9/11, when you think about that allegory, I mean, it happened in reality, but the allegory behind it, people dying for their image. Whether it was contrived, I don't think it was contrived. Well, see, that's the thing. People don't even know. But when you look at the actual story, the players, when you separate all the stories around it, and you look at the players, Mohammad and those that, and Osama bin Laden and all that stuff, and all the different players that are about suicide bombing and dying for their beliefs and all that stuff, that scenario of being in a plane and crashing into the World Trade Center, that's one allegory that is actually true, because there are suicide bombers out there that would do that. I mean, it even happened, kids are packed with explosives even in Vietnam. They were doing that. That's why the GIs didn't know who the enemy was. They were surrounded. There were children, there were women. Oh my gosh. And then you have the two towers, the two penetrating forces that have so much information, capitalism and wealth and greed. And yes, they're your friends and family who went to high-level colleges, had nice families. And so there's two stories that are merging into one. The suicide bombers of the Muslim, and then you had the wealth and greed. And those two worlds merged, explosive, and then you have the conspiracy world. And so that's why Israel's armed to the teeth. They have to deal with people who are in love with their own image, who are willing to die for their image, / kamikaze pilots and suicide bombers. And then that is an actual revelation. I'm like, oh my God. I gotta pee. Hold on. I just gotta pee real quick. And so then you see what the system does. They could develop stories that would happen anyways based upon the actual true what would happen if you're given the opportunity. And when you give someone the opportunity to do that, then it's like, okay, well, you've already acted out what you were going to do. If you're going to go and learn how to fly a plane and go to Florida and learn how to fly a plane through a simulation, and then go do all the back and forth with other people, to then develop that scenario of going through the airport and security and getting on that plane and then doing the stuff they did. Well, yeah. Okay. Hold on. Yeah, that's a scenario that would happen anyways. And then all the wealth and excess and crazy slavery capitalism, and someone who is all about dying for their image wants to go and destroy the slavery and capitalism and excessive wealth, then those two worlds merge together, and then there you go. And it doesn't matter if it was contrived or organic, it was meant to happen that way. It was going to happen that way if given the chance. So they gave it a chance, and there it went. Okay? And so that's all religions and politics, dying for your image. Now look at people who are going to the medical holistic energy healing world, dying for their image, because they end up dead in the morgue or dying suddenly. Now it comes down to whose image is stronger, who is more honorable. And I said, good luck. And I said, well, a Greek tragedy, so if you know what that was, is a play that was popular in ancient Greece around the 5th century BC. These plays told tragic stories of heroes, okay, because that's all relative, who strive for greatness but were brought low by a combination of fate and their own human flaws. See, if you can't even look at your own flaws, you will go down with the ship. Okay? Greek tragedies are a powerful and profound form of storytelling that explores the complexities of the human condition. They often depict the tragic downfall of their main character, brought about by their own flaws and failings. Now look at the morgue. Look at all the activists who are dying right now. Spiritualists, politicists, religious, well, I said that, scientists. Now look what's going on with poor Trump. I don't say poor Trump, but hey, he was given so much. He was allowed to do what he intended to do. If the system resisted him, then there'd be a war, right? So they allowed him to do whatever he does, inflate his stuff, whatever. Now he's on trial. His kids are on trial. Now, and it's 9:11 a.m. right now. Interesting. And so even right now, the Trump organization is going through their own Greek tragedy. And I'm sure the Biden organization is also going through their own Greek tragedy. Every single government out there, every single person in their politics, religion, science, and whatever, are going through their own fucking Greek tragedy. And when you realize that's what's going on, then you separate yourself, get away from all the mirrors around you, and you deal with your own bullshit. If you can't, then you will be a Greek tragedy. And you will die in that image, because that was your intention. So the word tragedy comes from the Greek words tragos, which means goat, and oi, which means song. Okay. All right, so I'm going down my timeline now because I got to go through this. And so you saw that photo of Israel, and I said peaceful. People were like, yeah, right, Jillian. It says it sucks to be misunderstood and defend oneself. And then I put in the Hamas flag. It sucks to be so angry to the point where you're suicide bombing or bombing. Okay? Then you have, it sucks to be a kid caught in the middle of some acrimonial, deadly divorce. Kids are caught up in the middle of a divorce and custody disputes. And so Palestine is caught in the middle of a deadly divorce. Acrimonial divorces suck. All right? And so, yeah, right now, there are millionaires who are developing children, 10 babies in 10 months. A woman who's 23 welcomes 10 babies in 10 months with her millionaire husband. And they'll be raised in a specific way. And they have $1 million to do that. And the system will help them be raised. And she chose to have 10 babies in 10 months with her millionaire husband. That's the future of the world, is you will have birthing families. As the rest of the world becomes infertile and strives to stay alive, there'll be people who will be allowed to procreate, and it will be guided very carefully. You're watching the future happen today. Okay? And so I know all of us are in some kind of journey and struggle on some level, and there's memes that reflect what we feel at the time. And so people have told me what they believe in, and that's fine. I'm not going to dispute what they believe in, because we all, have our own belief system, and then we respect it, and we just have a back and forth. And so this person liked a meme from R.M. Drake. Keep your distance from people who only think about themselves and don't try to understand how others think, feel, or think. Okay, well, how do you know they're not keeping their distance away from you? And so when you're looking at somebody and you look at their thought process, right? And you look at what they say, they're nowhere next to you, but they are on Facebook because they're reading your information. So then they're projecting what the other person has already done, because they don't hang out with too many people, right? I don't hang out with hardly anybody. I like people. It doesn't mean I hang out with them all the time. I don't want to be too influenced by whatever belief systems they have. And so when someone says, keep your distance from people who only think about themselves and don't try to understand how others feel or think, then that's actually what the other person is doing, and that's what they are exemplifying when you think about it. Because how do you know? Or how do you know what they're thinking and feeling? You're making assumptions. And so you're talking about yourself. You're the one that caused the other person to stay away from you. Or you wouldn't be saying anything, you know? Because if they weren't around you, then you wouldn't say that. But the reason why they're around you is because you're the one that's causing them to keep their distance, and you're just repeating what they're saying in their head, and you're the aggressor. And so I said, some know how others think, which is why they stay away from people. People hate on their reflection, right? So that person who wrote that meme or liked it doesn't like their own reflection. And then the people who stay away from other people don't like the reflection of what they were or what they could be or what they could potentially be, right? And so everyone then should be staying away from each other, and there's no one to keep your distance from because you already kept your distance. There's no one to blame. See, that's the thing about Narcissus. That's Greek mythology. That's some pretty crazy stuff. And so I said, including me, I just chill out in my head and on my Facebook and in my house because it is a safe neighborhood now. I release those demons. And I tell you, you saw me go through those demons. If you watch my other videos from 3 or 4 years ago, you're looking from back then and today, oh, marked difference. I'm like, oh my God. And so, yeah, the last 3 years, remember, COVID-19 came around the end of 2019. We got this house in around February of 2019. And I was feeling my stuff, whatever. And so we didn't really do too much. He didn't do too much of that, kind of like that. Yeah, we came here in 2019 February. So we didn't do any of the fall cleanup back then because in the middle of February. It was wintertime. But then it was 2020. It was when he had to do all the landscaping. And I was feeling like shit. And he was feeling like shit too. 2021, feeling like shit. 2022, feeling like shit. Now we're in 2023. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to go out there. And I see him blowing the leaves. And I'm like, oh my God. He doesn't want to leave the leaves on the ground because it'll kill the grass. So I'm like, okay. And so at first I'm walking in front of him while he's sort of was trying to get, when he's blowing stuff around. I'm like, I'm going to help him. And I did. I held the bag. And so I don't like doing yard work. I really don't. Because we had to when we were kids. But this is the first time in 3 years, and we hadn't been in this house since, February 2019. So first time in 3 years that I helped my husband with the yard work outside. That showed how well I was. And so even with getting those hives, they don't last very long. And they keep my collagen. That growth keeps things in form, keeps things in place. I don't remedy my growth. I don't surgically take out any growth. I release the demons. And so, my armpits will be sore. And so, my husband saw he saw on Friday, he saw those hives come up. And he was like, oh my God, I think you have anxiety around me, Jillian. I think you're afraid of me. I'm like, no. The frequencies were up before he came home like that evening. Remember I was telling you, oh my God, I'm getting all these revelations. These hives are coming up. They were in the afternoon. I'm just like typing away, just energetic, like all the hell. And the hives are coming up, and then he comes home, and they're even growing even more. And he's just like, oh my God, every time I come home, Jillian, I'm like, it's Friday. They turned the frequencies up. He's like, no, I think you have an anxiety. I'm like, oh God. He's like, your mind saying that, oh, your husband's coming home, time to get all anxious. Like, no, it's just, it's how my body responds to growth, to frequencies. I mean, his back was hurting this weekend. He slept in the bed a few times, but then he had to go on the couch because if he slept in the bed more often than not and had a firmer mattress seat in the truck, he could probably get aligned and go through the pain of being aligned, but he doesn't like the pain, so he'll get on the couch. It has more give, so much softer. It doesn't give him a lot of support, but he's not in much pain. So I figured out, my bed is firmer than the couch, than his truck bed. And so, when the frequencies go up, he's in pain. And then he blames the bed. But probably, I can't tell him he needs to feel. So then he sleeps on the couch. So I figured out what's going on. I slept like a baby last night. I really did. I mean, I think we were watching The Big Lebowski. I'm watching I like watching this Selling Sunset, or yeah, because that show shows you the dynamics of chicks that hang out together and blame each other for stuff. Okay, here we go. Here's some heavy stuff. All right. We were watching The Big Lebowski last night, and I fell asleep, and I was snoring a little bit. All right. So people have such problems eating human proteins, or they have a problem with where their food comes from, but they have no problem kissing and swallowing during sex. And there's a lot of chicks out there who are all organic, okay? All organic, and they're like, oh, genetically modified is horrible, but they have boyfriends. Or they're single and they date around. And they have no problem kissing or swallowing someone's semen. And they're proud of it. They're like, yeah, I'd rather swallow than spit. I always thought that was gross. Literally, I always thought that was gross. And so I'm like, oh, how much strange ass have you encountered your whole life? Don't tell people, okay? It's not very classy. But we know it's all assumed people have had some kind of strange ass in their life, if not now or even before. People don't talk about it, because then if you don't talk about it, then it doesn't exist, and then you never can blame it. And never use that as a leverage point to make a point. Because if you admitted or even knew that you did it or other people did it, and it would support the point of, why would you even question genetically modified when you're swallowing genetically modified people who hang out with other people, or share drinks with them, or share smokes with them, or share pools, swimming together, right? And so how much strange ass have you encountered your whole life? Don't tell people, right? It's not very classy, but we know it's all assumed. Too many people in your world will pressure you into having children or relationship, or hanging out with a lot of people, sharing drinks and whatever. Really? I mean, how people go to church. They're all like, oh, don't eat this, it's genetically modified. And they're going to restaurants, they're going to churches, they're hanging out with their friends, their other family, and they're all kissing each other. Both cheek, that's the European way, kiss cheek to cheek. Okay? Check your privilege. You have children. Imagine your children. They're putting their hands everywhere, in their butts, and their crotches, and their mouth, and their nose. They're hanging out with other kids. They're touching stuff. And you're kissing your kid's hand and going, and being all grandma and mommy and me and all this other shit. You're taking in all these microbes, cannibalizing all the proteins in your environment, eating restaurant food prepared by somebody else who could be spitting in your food. You're having sex with your husband and taking in all of his microbes. And you're so concerned with genetically modified. And so when you have children, right? You didn't get them through immaculate conception, nor did you just do missionary. Even then, why would that make a difference? Well, people are like, oh, if you just do missionary, then that's less amount of microbes. No, but you're taking in now direct inject. Now people do all the anal stuff, and they do all the mouth stuff, and oh God, then there's the cancers that come along with that. Then there are all the different diseases, the evolution, the mixing of the microbes. And even if you did just do missionary, you had to have kissed your husband or baby daddy or baby mommy. And I'm sure your baby daddy wasn't the only man in the world you hate. H-and-A-T-E. See, that's the thing. Hate is you're eating someone. Hate. Love, you're dying or reproducing. And when you hate, you've ate them up and now you're regurgitating them. What happens when you eat? You shit. When you hate someone, you ate their information and you shit it out. And you shit on them in the world. And you love someone, oh yeah, let's bring in all the microbes so they can fornicate. And then all they hate is when all that microbe then turns into an offspring that you don't like seeing the reflection of you. And your baby mommy wasn't the only mommy you have ate. You have swallowed so many proteins of humans throughout your whole life. And you're so worried about genetically modified. Or when that guy Andy Earl said about the water cycle. Now, I didn't ask him the question because I didn't want to go down any rabbit holes. You know, you can Google water cycle, or you can ask him directly on his page or message him. I don't really need to have so much of like, oh, the fear of the water processes in our environment because you have an immune system and people take those things way extreme. Okay? But, yeah. And you're so worried about genetically modified. That's what you get when you regurgitate and blame someone for their own bullshit. Humans are the most organic things in the world. It's all your bullshit, which is genetically modified. I mean, I'm being facetious as far as like humans are the most organic things. Because what does organic really mean? And, you know, if you want to go organic, that's like caveman mentality. That means you're now the prototype of some unevolved, baser level instinct type of person who doesn't really have a single, what do you call it? A single original thought. Everything has just been borrowed and regurgitated. And even then, if you're that lucky. And so, anyway, so I said I'm being facetious, but I know many of you will take me literally just so you can slam me, which is fine, I don't care. Okay? So that's this, and that's the sexuality world. Now, I'll probably go further into, or maybe a little bit, I don't know. Yeah, the sexual orientation. I'll go into that a little bit later down the timeline. But I wanted you to see the arguments around genetically modified and those who are so against it. And they're all in their mommy and me groups. So they have fucking children. And they've had countless baby daddies, or even one. And they've had their sexual flings, their one-night stands, all their parties, and their get-togethers, and all those microbes swirling around, fornicating with each other, and they're taking their remedies, taking their surgeries. They go to ball games. They go to bathhouses and swimming pools and public restrooms. They go into crowded rooms that are hot and sweaty, like dance clubs, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They go do orgies with other people. That's the underbelly of sexual society. They're pickup artists. Talk about how to get a girl. They've had countless women in their world, but yet they're against GMO. And they're fucking so many different women and men. Really? That's narcissism. That's politics. That's religion. That's science. Narcissus, Pandora. Who's Pandora? Pandora, it had so many so many demons that she let loose. See, when the environment changed, right? When the environment changed and it became so influential that growth happened like that, and people were opening up their mouth, their nose, even down there, because they're shitting or diarrheaing, blowing their nose, coughing, because of the frequency shifts. That's Pandora opening up her mouth and letting out all the demons. And then the demons go out there and find their like-minded people, influence them to go find like-minded people, then you get the narcissists. Who are those? Those who accuse others of being narcissistic. Narcissus or narcissistic wouldn't exist if it wasn't for those who accused others of narcissism. They wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the therapies world dealing with those who accuse others of narcissistic. But the word Narcissus came about because it was an allegory of a representation of one person who fell in love with their image. Somebody died and whatever, they pined away from the death of that person, the death of themselves, right? Because they weren't whole without the other person reinforcing who they are. And so when when your significant other dies, or when your group dies, or when your fame dies, then people starve themselves trying to stay relevant. They pine away and they pine away and they are in despair because their mother died, their father died, the one that reinforces their image, their significant other dies, their old world dies, and so they die. And then when people do what they do, they surround themselves with people who do what they do, who don't live up to what they think you should be to them, then they act what they act, and people feed off each other's emotions and drama, then they accuse each other of being narcissistic. They purposely surround themselves by the mirrors of who they are because they find like-minded people, and then they accuse them. Or else, why would you accuse someone? Why would you be mad at somebody? Because you surrounded yourself by people who act just like you. And so now you know who all the narcissists are out there, right? They accuse people, and then they project, and then they don't know what to do, and then you have to bring in a therapist who will go in and psychoanalyze you and figure out how to remedy your pain of not taking care of yourself, of blaming others. But you can't be by yourself, right? Because then people do themselves in by themselves. So they have to be around other people. But what kind of people? But then the thing is with therapists and therapies, you're trying to convert others. I say, okay, well, you got to speak your mind. Well, I'll tell you, when you're in a marriage, you now have to figure out how to negotiate your survival. Both parties. When you're not in a marriage, and you're not forced to deal. If you're in a job, you can go find another job. When you're married, you don't even have to stay in that marriage. You have to figure out, is the costs outweigh the benefits, or the benefits outweigh the costs, and you have to figure that out for yourself. All right? But with therapists out there who are dealing with people who are victims of narcissism, right? Or their mama was a narcissist, or their dad was a narcissist, which made you a narcissist, and now you're like pissed off your mom and dad for being narcissistic, and now you're narcissistic, accusing everyone that looks like and acts like your mom and dad is narcissistic. Now we have a problem. People declaring war on strangers, or declaring war on their friends and family, or declaring war on their coworkers. Now you know who all the narcissists are out there. They will die for their own self-image. Narcissists accuse others of being narcissistic because they know they are themselves quite narcissistic. It takes one to know one. And I've had this problem the last 7 years, this last 5 years, of people who are victims, self-ascribed victims of somebody else's narcissism. And I always laughed in my head about that because I'm like, what? And you look at all the characteristics of the who they are accusing of narcissism, and all of a sudden you look at them and they act the same way. And I was watching that even on the Selling of Sunset, the hot girls that say that they don't get involved with other people's lives. They don't have an opinion, but they do. And they get accused of inserting themselves with their opinions about stuff. And then you see them flinging back and forth accusations of whatever, and they both bring it on themselves. But yeah, watch Selling Sunset. Hot chicks selling $1 billion homes, $1 million homes, getting into arguments and accusing each other of things like these types of things, and they are the ones that start the wars, and they don't like how the wars sustain themselves or end, and they cannot take responsibility. I'm just like, oh my God, classic Narcissus on these reality shows. It's amazing to watch. It really is, and it's entertaining, and you learn through entertainment, I'll tell you. And you learn looking at your Facebook, those that are accusing others of being narcissistic. It does take one to know one. Remember, narcissists will die for their own self-image. That's why I posted those reels of me in so many different looks and poses. Not different, but when I was taking pictures of myself and doing the music behind it. And I put hashtag Narcissus, hashtag 20 years later. Because, yeah, I mean, yes, I like my own self-image. I fell in love with it. And in the next 7 years, the cells that were appearing today are not going to be the same ones. Will my ideas be different? Potentially. A lot of things will be different 7 years later. In 2030, a lot of things will be different. And so I put hashtag Narcissus, hashtag 20 years later, whether it's 20 years later from before, and I showed the other videos of me 20 years ago, 1994 or whatever, or 2004. That's 30 years ago. But then even 20 years later, when I look back on those reels, I'll be like, will I be in the same place? I don't know, but here, let's record what I look like today. Let's record my mannerisms today. Let's record what I'm thinking today. So when I look back 20 years ago, I'll be like, wow, is it the same or have I evolved? Remember, narcissists will die for their own self-image. And they make sure they surround themselves with people who reinforce that self-image. Boom. That's all your groups, your friends, your family, your politics, your religion, your science. That's classic narcissism. Okay? And now read who all the narcissists are in our society. Read about what they accuse others of, and you will know they're talking about themselves. And they purposely surround themselves with like-minded people to blame. Narcissus fell in love and hated his own reflection. Because even the people that he loved that died, he couldn't handle it. Now look at the daughters who are like, oh, my mommy died. Yeah, your mom died. Now go make something of yourself. Oh, but they're wallowing in the death of their mother. Yeah, okay, she died. Do you have to end up like her, or will you go down the ship with her? People will go down the ship with her. They will end up joining their mothers in the death process. Joining their fathers, their sisters, and their brothers. And so those are the narcissists in our society who are mourning so much for the death of their loved one. Instead of saying, wait, I don't want to end up like them. I'm going to make something of myself, and I appreciate what they gave me for how many years, and now let me take this death and turn it into something like life. Oh no, they'll wallow in their shit, surround themselves by people who feel the same way, and they all die together. That's narcissism. Narcissist fell in love and hated his own reflection, and now look at all the groups of people who talk about narcissists looking into the mirror of themselves. That's how you know narcissist was bred into the population of friends, family, and culture. And people purposely surround themselves with mirrors, clones of themselves, and they also resent it. Oh, the humanity. And then I said, wah, wah. So yeah, I'm not really that sympathetic. Sorry. I mean, it sucks when people die, and it's a change, but I'm not going to let their death take me down too. But people do. They let someone else's death take them down. They wallow in their own freaking pity. And that's how then they die in their own self-image. Because once their significant other who made them be whoever they are dies, they don't know who they are. They are not who they are. They are the other person. They were always the other person. They never had any personal worth of themselves. Their worth was all based upon their significant other. Their mother, their father, their sister, their brother. Yes, I have this because I went to Starbucks when we went to go get food, spent less than $100 on food, and I made amazing stuff. And because I wanted to hang out with him, and he's like, well, let's go to Dunkin' Donuts, but he already had his coffee on Saturday. So I'm like, I don't want to go to Dunkin'. I'm just going to Starbucks. We'll get my little Starbucks. So I saved half of it, and so I poured in my own coffee and cream, what I got from the grocery store. And so I'm reliving Saturday. Okay. But since I wanted to go do something with him, and he didn't want to go, he wanted to go to Dunkin', but he didn't want coffee. He's like, no, I already had my coffee this morning. Well, I don't want to go to Dunkin's. If I'm going to get a coffee, I'm going to go to freaking Starbucks. And so I did. So there you go. That's my treat. And so, yeah, I wasn't very sympathetic. Oh, the humanity. Wah, wah. And narcissists hold court to so many like-minded people, and they thrive on the following. And they have something to sell you. Right? They're going to save you from yourself. They need the constant reinforcement. They constantly need to be lifted up. And they need mass amounts of agreement, or else they don't exist anymore. If they don't have a following, or that they don't exist. So imagine these activists who've been in the activist world, chemtrails, to anti-GMO, to anti-V. If they said, oh gosh, wait, hold on a second. The V's are no different than the obelisks with the information, with all the hieroglyphics and the symbols. They're not bad. And that's like my penis, right? We see a male anti-V person who can then compare his penis to a vaccine, to then an obelisk. Then you realize, I don't need to be an anti-V anymore because I'm the one that also gives out information and could also corrupt another person and also cause disease, as well as children. When the anti-V activists realize what they have figured out, then they're not going to need their following. But remember, their following and their activist stances make them money. They're not going to go and reconsider their belief systems. So they're stuck. They're pigeonholed. And if they do try to speak out of both sides of their mouth, when you think about it, saying one thing and doing another, when you finally go through the throes of evolution, you might have growths on your faces. You might have acne. You might have, hell, I don't know. And how are you going to explain that when you have psoriasis? When you have hives that are coming up all different places? Somebody had major psoriasis when the chili juice activated their immune system. And they were getting it like all on the side of their face. It was just, they said it was so painful and so intense that they had to go and get medicine to go and stop that. They couldn't go through that process because it's too painful. And something like that, you'd have to really figure out how to manage using a little bit of relief, but also realize you have to feel some pain and feed yourself and release the demons, so those then become less and less and less. But that's a process. So imagine those in the anti-V world that hold that kind of aggressive cultures in their body, and they're like, well, I'm going to do the J world, but I'm going to still speak on being anti-V and blame all the V's on everybody, right? And all their conditions. And then they're dealing with now lichen, whatever, psoriasis, that's like just covering. Yeah, they're not going to do that. So they're stuck. They have to go and blame because they don't want to bring up what they already have inside. And even if they do bring it up, they can say, I blame this. But no, you hold the information. You walk into crowds. You're taking your remedies. You've been vectored, in body, mind, and spirit through politics, religion, and science. You've been vectored up the yin-yang by yourself, taking all your remedies, and you're just shoving them down your throat. That's a vector. That's a force. You're going to crowds. You're breathing in the vector of energy that holds microbes, microscopic microbes, aerosol microbes that are now you're breathing them in. That's why they talk about the masks, right? It's like a face condom, face diaper. Absolutely. And so if they don't have a following, then they don't exist. And they depend on their following and their kids and their husband or wife and all their friends and family to keep them alive. Because it's the agreement, it's the image they are after. It's never about taking care of themselves. They use taking care of others as a way to ignore oneself, but they resent others as well. So when people say, my life is about making everybody else happy, and that's it, not me. Oh, you martyr, you self-sacrificing martyr. And now you hate. Because you're resenting the fact that you'd make everybody happy. And who's to say that you're making them happy? Who's to say you have the power to convert someone's sadness into happiness? So then what are you doing? So now you're a self-sacrificing martyr of a mother, a father, a friend. But then you hate. Where does that come from? Because you sacrificing yourself is not helping the world. The world's not going to fucking change unless you fucking change. But if you're about making everybody else happy and not yourself, and you're about to take care of everybody else but not yourself, and as you're deteriorating, you're blaming out others because you've failed to take care of yourself because you're too busy taking care of other people and you're now deteriorating, and now you hate people for that, but you've brought it on yourself, that's Narcissus. That's narcissism. It's the war of exhaustion. It's the Breakfast Club, right? They're at war with each other. When I finally walked away from society, like I really literally did, really walked away from all that validation. And that was hard. Because even then in my immediate world, I was dependent upon validation to feel like I was somebody. But I realized I'm not the people in my community, or really, that's them. I have to be myself, whatever that is. I had to find it. And when you get away from all the people around you, then you find yourself. And you realize, wow, okay, I was using them as an excuse to blame or to feel validated. And people will live and die in those worlds. People will die in those worlds, and that's okay. That's their choice. And so when I finally walked away from society, I like really walked away from all that validation. Then I looked at society and I saw myself. Pretty eye-opening. It's quite embarrassing looking at yourself when you look at humanity. And you see girls on there, they're all about showing off all their assets. And they're proud of how many men they have screwed in 1 year. Taking in all of those microbes that are causing fornication, offspring. And they're being used up. But they're proud of it. That's a crazy ass society. But that's showing you. When people don't know how shit works, they will be proud of the things that are causing their own destruction. And they will be upset when they start deteriorating. And maybe eventually they'll go into activism and start blaming the GMO and the vaccine and everything, as they have caused then all that fertility in their body to come up into disease. Now they die suddenly. Supernova. And so when I was posting those memes about defending yourself against a narcissist, oh my God, the narcissist society, the anti-narcissist society is so huge. And there are therapists for you with that. There are holistic people. There are life coaches to help you deal with the narcissist people in your society. They're like, well, it's my mom's fault, it's my dad's fault, it's my friend's fault, or it's my whatever's fault. And do these therapists ever say, well, maybe you're the narcissist? Oh no, that would be offensive. And so what is, so here's the thing, this is what it says, defend yourself against a narcissist. What's the one bullet point? Separate yourself from the person. What person? From yourself? Oh no, it's the other person's fault, right? So if you say, well, separate yourself from the person, then you're already laying blame on somebody else. Oh, it's their fault. They're the narcissist, right? Take time to heal. The fuck does that mean? React with empathy and respect. Why even be there to react at all? If you're forced to be there because of a job, then you quit your job. If you're forced to be there because you're married and you can't handle their narcissistic behaviors and the costs outweigh the benefits, then fucking divorce them. Why should you have to react at all? Oh, but see that now they're saying now just sit with that. Sit with yourself being just as narcissistic to bring out the narcissism in somebody else. Seriously? Remain calm and unaffected. Oh, okay, so push down your feelings. Remain calm and unaffected. Disengage from our conversations. Well, obviously. But if you actually left and went on your own, you wouldn't have to disengage. There'd be nothing to blame when you actually put yourself on your own, away from people. Because even people who you don't think are narcissists are. They're just friendlier about it. They find a different way to manipulate through their own. So then you're like, oh shit. Set and enforce clear boundaries. Okay. Keep your intentions and goals to yourself. And so, I mean, with these people that you love, this is how they're trying to tell you how to interact with family. If you have to be around your family, then you are asking for it. You're just as bad as your family. Because they're a reflection of you, you're a reflection of them. If this type of situation, this type of suggestions must be used, then you're just, it's like you're forcing yourself never to look at yourself. You're forcing yourself to therapize yourself and to manage your abuse on others and their abuse on you. Because you never really said, maybe you're the one that's the aggressor and you don't even know it. Maybe you bring out the bullshit in other people. Maybe it's you. Yeah, right. You think someone's going to And here's another thing that someone said. Narcissists equals users and deceivers and judgmental and selfish, some cheaters, liars, revengeful, jealous, competitive, envious, blame shifters. Oh yeah? Ironic, right? Insecure, thieves, and basically an asshole. Did I miss anything? Comment below. I didn't say it. I don't want to comment below. So the person who wrote this knows exactly who the narcissists are because they are one. They are the users, the deceivers, the judgmental, selfish, cheaters, liars, revengeful, jealous, competitive, blame shifter, insecure. Because the reason why you have these types of words and characteristics of people is because you hang out with them. You attract them. You attract the demons in your fucking world. So when you stop hanging out with people and you hang it on your own, there's no one to blame. Oh my God. It's when you hang out with people. Then you get the narcissist because they're the mirror image of you. Oh, but I have to hang out with people. Okay, then you're going to bring out the bullshit in everybody. Oh, here's another one here. People who have not experienced narcissistic abuse have no idea what strength it takes to survive. Okay. These people will be dismissive and label you as untruthful, neurotic, and unstable. Narcissistic abuse is so extreme and cruel that it seems to be fabricated to those who have not experienced it. Well, you hang it on your own. You take care of yourself. You're more self-sufficient. You wouldn't have to blame what you bring out in others. Because we all bring out the worst in others until we figure out what we have brought up in ourselves. And then we either walk away or we have a conversation. And then you're not blaming anyone. There's no one's narcissistic. They just had... That's the thing. Is if it's that bad, then you walk the fuck away and then you don't even have a complaint anymore. The people who are constantly complaining always keep the problem around so they can keep blaming. You know? Another meme says, some narcissists will try to overtalk you till you just give up because they want to wear you down, so just give in. Oh, it takes two to do that. See, when you have to go and convince someone or convert them on a constant basis, well, either you walk away or you just deal with the situation. And then there's no complaint. You're the one that has kept that situation around. And if you're weak and you can't deal with it, then you walk away. If you're strong enough for it and you know that you have the strength to keep standing your ground, and then the other person is not the enemy. You just keep standing your ground. And you know what you're worth. And if they have to leave because you keep standing your ground, then that was never meant to happen to be what it was. They had to leave because you were stronger than them. Eventually, when two people stand their ground, they will come to some kind of agreement, or they will and then explode. And they both have to leave each other. And so, yeah, it's a war out there. And you have to know what kind of war you're in. Or if you don't, then you will. The narcissist in your life. What does it say? These phony knights are psychologically dangerous to those who swept up in their false, lie-filled personal narratives. Can you imagine when you have a therapist that posts that and they actually probably are the ones that exemplify that? They know. See, therapists know exactly the shit that goes on in people's heads because they are the ones. It takes one to know one. Oh my God, here's another one. If they can watch you break down and cry from their actions once and not change their ways after that, nothing will ever make them change and they can't possibly love you. Are you fucking kidding me? No one can hurt the person they love knowingly and not make some changes after that. So now, if they hurt you and didn't immediately start making changes, you can see and feel that's not love, it's narcissism. Who are they to change? If they don't want to change, they don't have to change. You're the one that wants them to. You're the one that stays in that situation. Who are they? They don't have to change if they don't want to. If they want to change, they will. If they don't want to, then whatever. It's whatever, but it doesn't warrant. People. I don't know. Oh, another one. Narcissists condition you to associate your strengths, talents, and happy memories with abuse, frustration, and disrespect. They do this by sneaking in put-downs about qualities and traits they once idealized, as well as sabotaging your goals and ruining celebrations, vacations, and holidays. Okay? Well, if your success is their failure, then your failure is their success, and you keep that around, whose fault is that again? You can't force convert people to do whatever, and you're probably just as bad. Okay? All right, I'm not gonna read this, but I'm just saying, that's the thing with narcissism. Everyone is narcissistic until they can be by themselves and deal with themselves. Because you surround yourself by those who reinforce the image that you think is the ultimate image. And you hold on to an image that maybe isn't you, but you now blaming them for reinforcing the image that you keep holding on to. And so if you're pissed off at your friends and family, or pissed off at your family, like your mom and your dad and your sister and your brother, I said family can be the most destructive. But you kept going to Thanksgiving and Christmas, enduring all whatever it is that you have to give to them and they give to you. Maybe you are successful and they resent it. So why do you keep putting yourself in that situation? And now you call them narcissists? No, you just bring it out in them because you're bragging. Or you represent something that they aren't, or they are. And it's back and forth, mutually shared destruction. And so if you have narcissists in your world, okay, and you could be one, then why don't you stop entertaining them and they stop entertaining you, and everybody goes their own corner, and then no one's blaming anyone, and there's no need for therapy. It's when you purposely entertain the people that bring up the worst in you, is that why people are suffering. And so then I said, to those who are still running on about spirituality and mirroring and narcissism and manipulation, if you plan to die someday and you're on the same kind of spiritual path, and you are on some kind of spiritual path, that is the very definition of narcissism. Dying for one's self-image. You are mirroring narcissists. Yes, I'm talking to you, a spiritual one. And that's in all politics, all religion, all scientific dogmas. Even the energy healing people who surround themselves by like-minded people who are blaming or whatever. So my image changes with evolution. I'm not always beautiful, but when I am, I record it. Just like when I'm perceivably ugly, when you're seeing me go through an evolutionary change because of the frequencies, and I'm bloated or I look weird, okay? I like seeing the evolution. Or when I went to that party and I was drinking 3 shots of alcohol and it was hot that day and I was bloated, big as a house, and I don't care, fuck it, look at me. Because in the next couple of days after release of demons, I look relatively normal. Okay? And that's evolution, is fluctuating with your environment, with growth and release and retention and eating. So the aging process is starvation. And what do narcissists do? They die and starve from pining away at the loss of the image, the reinforcement of their image, whether it's from a husband or a wife or a friend or a family or a mother or a father. They lost their number one fan in their fan club. And when you have to have fans, you're fanatical and you're narcissistic. When you depend upon your mom and your dad and your sister and your brother and your husband or wife to reinforce who you are, when you have to protect yourself from the world out there by doing stuff, not just by like doing your own thing but you're trying to sell protection to people, it's narcissistic. Because you're bringing them into your world, and then maybe you're the one that's attracting all the things that you have to protect yourself from. And so the aging process, starvation, is narcissism. That was bred into all politics, religion, and science. A self-image is a person's perception of themselves, including their physical appearance, personality, and characteristics. It can have a significant impact on an individual's self-esteem and self-worth. Self-image is influenced by various factors such as culture, family, friends, personal experiences, self-abuse, self-defeating, or self-destructive behavior. Self-sabotage, when you're working out and doing drugs and exercises all the time so you can live up to a specific image. When you're surrounding yourself by so many people who are so like-minded, reinforcing your image. When you're looking for a significant other and then depend upon them to keep that image going. And if they do pass away, you don't get mired into how pitiful you are because you lost them. Now, what are you going to do to stay alive? What are you going to do? Or are you going to surround yourself with people who will keep reinforcing their sympathy for you? Oh, you lost this person. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it sucks. So what are you going to do? How are you going to live? How are you going to survive? Is your husband or wife or mother or father a lesson to what you don't do if you want to survive? Oh no. Then you'll be around all the people around you to be like, keep lifting you up, because if your husband or wife or mother or father are not there anymore, now you're going to find somebody else to take the place. It could be a group of people. It could be another person to reinforce your self-image because you haven't figured out how to reinforce your own self-image. That's why people die in the follow along with their husband or wife thereafter, because they were not themselves. They were the other person. And they put all their eggs in the other person, never in themselves. And that's most of humanity. And so that's self-sabotage. And so self-image can be very positive, giving a person confidence in their thoughts and actions, or negative, making a person doubtful of their capabilities and ideas. And you'll see who people are when their significant other dies. You will see how they act and who they surround themselves with when somebody in their world dies. Because they're going to have to find somebody or something or a group of people to take the place. And so I Googled Narcissus' death. In both Ovid and Pausanias' version of Narcissus, Narcissus dies by a pool gazing at his own reflection that he falls in love with. Relationships went nowhere and Narcissus, unable to draw himself away from the pool, pined away in despair until he finally just died of thirst and starvation. Yeah, people are in relationships that are going nowhere. Right? Because where are they going? It's what is it called? It's like the race to the bottom. All relationships out there right now that believe in death is a race to the bottom. Eat themselves to death, do drugs themselves to death, fuck themselves to death, drink themselves to death, party themselves to death, distract themselves to death, love themselves to death and other people. A race to the bottom in most of society. Have children themselves to death. To those who are still running on about spirituality and mirroring and nursing, if you plan to die someday, you are on some kind of spiritual path. Or you're on some kind of spiritual path, dying for one's self-image. And I already read that. Fuck, I have to pee again. I'll wait. And so then this next thing says, in the absence of purpose, life becomes an endless journey to nowhere. And so when you don't really have a purpose, you don't know what it is, except to drink, smoke, do drugs, and go to your job, and have a few hobbies, if that's your only purpose, okay, then you'll die in that. If you don't evolve. And so the purposes are changing now. They're actually transitioning. They didn't just totally take out the steel industry. They didn't just totally take out the trucking industry. They didn't totally just take out the medical industry. It's a transition. But those things are not going to be necessary in the future at some point. And so when people are activating their immune system to such an extent, and the purposes they have been accelerated to such an extent that it then uses up with their energy, then life becomes an endless journey to nowhere. And I gotta pee. Fuck. Hold on. Well, let me say this. When people don't reinforce their own immune system and their own body, and they're using themselves up in all their different purposes in life, then they end up on an endless journey to nowhere. And so their purpose is not really for themselves. Their purpose is for other people. And so they are an endless journey to nowhere. Okay? And so I said, balancing personal rights with social duties. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. That's the Georgia Guidestones. So you prize somebody else's truth, because it's their truth. Consider it. Doesn't mean you have to adopt it, but consider it. Beauty, okay, balance. Love, okay, dying and reproducing, because there has to be a balance. And then seeking harmony with the infinite. Okay, there's always going to be dying and reproducing out there. There's always going to be evolution and change. Will you survive it? Don't be so extreme, or you'll end up trying to hold on to an image that isn't sustainable. All right, here's this. So this chick, I don't know where she's from, but I don't know the whole thing. She says she gave up sex and haven't bonked in 2 years. It's so empowering. And then John was like putting a pickle out there. And we went through back and forth with that. But I'm like, it's not even that. Because I know, I don't have to have sex. Everything on my body works. And sometimes during a frequency change, things are, not as so at the surface. But when things are calmed down, then yeah, I could do everything. Not all. I really don't like to do anything but the traditional stuff. I don't try to be a porn star. And nope, I don't think people should be putting their, well, yeah. In my opinion, I don't do anything but the regular stuff. And I don't even like having objects used as far as sticking in anything inside, except for my husband's organic object. Okay? And so in the future, when people finally realize that they don't have to be someone by sticking something in their body, whether it's a dildo or another man's penis or a man's penis or a hand or a fist or anything like that, or a needle, though that maybe we're in the future, is that, but I don't even think that. There'll be people who will take all the different therapies through that obelisk of information, and then I will breathe in their microbes, and I will take on the vector of aerosol proteins. And I'll deal with the evolution. And it might even be in the food supply, and I'm fine with that. I have an immune system. And so when she says I haven't bonked in 2 years, but who knows what else she's doing. She could be using other stuff. But I'm like, I'm not even talking about using dildos or objects to stick inside your body. Not even that. One day we won't have to be sticking shit in us in order to feel validated. Okay? One day we will not have to feel like we have to have a husband or a wife or even objects to stick in us. Because that does trigger sexual reproduction. Doesn't mean that you'll have a baby. It just triggers those feelings, those hormones. And if you're doing all the remedies and you're out there and you're not releasing demons and you're taking all the remedies and surgeries, then eventually it'll be sexual reproduction. You will have a child, and will that child be someone society wants to deal with? And so when I said about the matrix, I said it earlier about the one. Are you the one to survive your friends and family, your relationship, husband and wife, community, world? Are you the one to survive your circle of friends? Are you the one to survive your family? That's what it is. It's not the one. Are you the strongest fish in your pond? And I don't mean that muscle-wise. Are you the one to survive your community? Are you the most adaptable? The most adaptable and the most evolutionary. And so, yeah, I posted the reels of like what I looked like, back in 1994 and throughout the last 20 years. And then I posted another video that I did a couple months back or a month back. And then one recently that I just did. So you can see, all right? that that I will still remain relatively similar to what, and I want, my hair might change, but I mean, you know, the aging process will not hit me. I'll change with evolution. Who knows if these white hairs, they're not that numerous, but you see them occasionally. You can see them. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. But I mean, it's been associated with the degradation process because people do degrade during that time. But it could be just a change from being a fertile person, being a brood mare and a breeder, to now being a regular human that isn't bred to be farmed and then used as a science experiment. And so some of your ancestors knew the gods were trying to destroy you, right? This is about Revelations and the Ark, and even today, all the activists. No one built an ark fast enough for you, so you were left to perish. And you knew you were going to die because there was no ark for you. And then the rains came. That was Revelations. But now you have a choice. I mean, you can say Noah's Ark, but really Noah's Ark was the same thing as Revelations. Imagine Revelations was actually before Noah's Ark. Not really in the scheme of the beginning, middle, and end, if you were to look at that type of timeline. But then reverse it and then put the ark after Revelations. Like, oh gosh, we're going to die. Yeah, we're warning you. And then the rains came. And there's Noah's Ark. And Noah's Ark and Revelations are kind of two sides of the same coin. Because so that was 6,000 years ago, or 5,000, 7,000, whatever that was. What was it? Flood was 2348 BC, 4,359 years ago was a flood. There's other floods that happened since then. But now you have a choice, right? And some people still have a mental block. And the rain is pouring. You're being given so many warnings and choices. Some of you are looking at Africa, right? And the African dating, and even the questions, it says, I love Africa dating. And they pose the question, is this considered culture or abuse? And shows a woman on her knees serving a man who has a baby in his lap and his kids in the other chair. And I'm just like, you know, when I saw that, I'm like, hey, that's the culture. It's not abuse. That's what happened in 1955. Women were in the house making, you know, they were the wife and the mother, barefoot and pregnant. And then in the 1960s, everything evolved. So will the last 50 years be crunched into about 20, 30 years of evolution in Africa based upon the internet? Yeah, potentially. And you saw people's responses. So I said 1958 to 1998. 40 years, right? The system, well, no, yeah. The system is trying to get everybody on the same page. And that includes developing conversations and teaching people how to interact with each other in a polite way. So there's people who said stuff that disagreed with that picture, said it was abuse versus culture. I say, hey, there's a culture and then there's evolution. Embrace the differences. Learn how to argue. Learn how to express yourself in an intelligent, organized way. It is an art that must be practiced. It's like watching us get on Facebook for the first time arguing with each other, or using AOL back in 1998 in the chat rooms, just letting loose on each other. Oh yeah, I remember all that. I remember I was in my friend's house and I was house sitting and they let me go on the AOL and I racked up a huge bill because I didn't realize, but they had enough money. They were like, it's okay. And I was in the chat rooms going like, oh my God, it was crazy. Talking to people on the internet in 1998, that was pretty insane. AOL. Okay? Then you had the terms of service to toss you out if you were breaking community guidelines. That was the beginning of community standards, was AOL, TOS, terms of service. And so the West has evolved, but we still have a long way to go. Africa is getting online now. They will go through their own growing pains. Civilized societies learn how to speak to each other. But you'll watch them go back to the roles of 1955, and they will go through the same revolutions and evolutions that we went through. Women will have to figure out their place in the world. They're going to have their own issues in abuse. They're going to have their own issues with abuse because everything happens behind closed doors until it's brought to the light. And some women will have to rise up and figure out how to take back their own power. But right now, this is where the system is going. They might go through 30 years of evolution of the West in 20 years, more or less, or 50 years, right? Quite extraordinary to watch. That's why I keep track of Africa, because that's like I'm watching a mirror of the past. I'm not going to read this, because I already figured out what was going on. As far as narcissism, people die for their image, and they surround themselves with clones and mirrors. So all your friends and family, when you think about it, all your associations, your activist groups, your religions, your politics, your science, just take a bunch of mirrors from Bed Bath & Beyond and put them all over your house. That's narcissism. And when people are lashing out at themselves or their friends and family, they're actually lashing out at themselves. When they're lashing out at people saying that they're this or that, they're actually looking at the reflection. Okay? And when you start doing that, when you start now talking about other people like I have, I immediately check myself because I don't want to come off hypocritical, and then I correct myself. And so I really like the fact that I can look at other people and say shit about them, not to their face, but about them on Facebook. And then I look at myself and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just the same way. Well, there's something else I could fix. And so looking at your Facebook community and the people around you, if you can actually say that you do the same thing that they are doing and that you have no leg to stand on and blaming them for anything, but if you don't want to keep being reminded of how you are and how you could be because you're interacting with them because they bring out the worst in you, you bring out the worst in them, that's when you cut off relationships. So that way, you don't bring out the worst in somebody and they don't bring out the worst in you, and you're in your separate corners and everything's peaceful. Oh my God. But when I start talking about everybody else, did I then start and judging everyone else, did I then figure out how to judge myself? And so I welcome being irritated at other people, because then I'm getting irritated at myself and I fix myself. And then I cut off, either unfollow or I hide some of their posts. So that way I can still appreciate them for who they are, but I don't have to see the mirror of what I don't want to be. I don't want them to bring that on me, and I don't want to bring that in them. And if they choose to bring themselves, if they choose that to bring out the worst in themselves by looking at me, that's not my fault. You're the one that looked at my Facebook. You're the one that came and purposely typed in my name and looked for me. You're the one that purposely followed me and looked at my information. And you're mad at me because you chose to allow me bring out the worst in you. It's not my fault. You're just looking at yourself. Fix yourself. If I keep bringing out the worst in you, then hey, then block and delete me. I ain't doing shit to you. That's what I'm saying. So be patient with mankind. It's brutal evolving. So the ones you respond to the most, that you take offense, they're trying to offend you or be better than you, are the ones that you want to listen to the most. And they're not self-pitying, and they take risks, even if it means they risk your wrath. It wasn't like they went into your Facebook and told you stuff. You went to their Facebook, but they're going to say shit that you're going to be so offended by. But you're the one that went to their Facebook. Okay, so the ones that offend you without purposely going into your world are the ones who make you consider everything that you're saying and they're saying. Okay? So then I realized something with wealth and innovation and people who are accountable to the architects of our society and who have the money. When you have so much money, your life is not your own. I'll let you know that being rich, as rich as Mark Zuckerberg, Bezos, Oprah, they are slaves too in a nice quarters. And so here's Mark Zuckerberg, married to Priscilla Chan. She's a doctor. And he's doing MMA. And I've used his platform to develop the Jilly Juice world, to figure out how to pull out the crap, release the demons, eat food, rest, relax. And what is he choosing to do with his time? He's doing MMA. What? If I was Mark Zuckerberg, if I was Jeff Bezos, if I was any of these guys that are getting paid a shit ton of money, I would be doing the J world, releasing demons, eating food, getting my life back, feeling all the things. I would have doctors around to make sure that, that I can feel good about going through that process. But Mark Zuckerberg now has torn his ACL. He's in the hospital. He wants to try to... So in my opinion, he should just stick to developing more software programs or write stuff that's interesting, whatever that is. Not get beat up in the ring. How far are you going to take this, Mark? You have so much money and this is what you choose to do? Okay. Why does him having so much money have to do with his choice of going into MMA? Because if he has the time to get himself beat up in the ring, he has time to get his life back that he has given away for so many years. But Mark is married to a doctor. Oh boy, I won't go down this road. I almost did. I already did. Moral to the story. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It's who you're accountable to. Okay? So I'm accountable to my husband and my government. And my husband's accountable to me and his government and his job. I don't have a lot of money, but I know how to do with whatever I have. And I don't work my husband to death for him to support my cancer, disease, or chronic illness, or anything else like that, or addictions. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I don't have any health issues. All I need is food, air, water, and climate control, and a little bit of money for communication, and a few treats here and there, but that's it. But when you're giving so much, when you're an influencer, like a major one, where you're making millions of dollars and you're getting to travel all over the world and do everything, there's a price to pay for that. Because they're not going to allow him to do what I'm doing and advertise it. Will he do what I'm doing and be under wraps? Who the hell knows? Some people will die with their riches because that's what they're accountable to somebody else. And so San Francisco is at the breaking point while they are. San Francisco street horror only grows as drug overdose numbers spike. Yeah, you can't convert people to be drug addicts and not be drug addicts. That was the dam that was going to break at some point. And I used to step over the homeless and the drug addicts over there in the BART stations in California and San Francisco. I used to live in San Francisco. I've seen it all over the place. Powell Street, over there, Union Square, homeless people peeing in the streets. A woman bending over and peeing in the streets, and you're seeing everything. She has absolutely no care because she has mental illness. You see the needles over there on Van Ness Avenue at the light, and you're crossing the street. There's hypodermic needles everywhere. Homeless camps all over the place. Even when I was there in 2003, the homeless were all over the place. Tenderloin. And so that dam was going to break at some point. The more the system tried to resist drugs, the more attractive it became. Resistance is futile. Just let it happen if it was meant to be. You really can't blame anyone. We did it to ourselves. Now we have to let it play out. It's brutal. Yeah, I understand. And I figured out that war and trauma make you fertile. That's why all the past wars, the baby boom was a depopulation agenda, because war made everyone fertile. They all had the children. Not all. Then the war changed. It became a microbial war, porn and drugs. And so, if you think about the baby boom, that was the beginning of the baby bust. When you had all that war, and there's drugs involved with that too, because what was going on, then you had the influenza, the pandemic back then, the Spanish flu, 1918. Then you had World War II. Then you had the 1950s of the baby boomers, 40s and 50s. And then you had all the innovation and all the velvet coffins, the drugs, the party in the 80s was like that. Drugs and partying and big houses, bigger is better, right? What is it? Supersize everything. All, it was Babylonia, porn. I mean, come on. You had Brooke Shields and all the 1980s when they had the horror movies and the Breakfast Club and the Schoolyard and the hypersexuality and the LGBTQ and Playboy and then you had the 90s, 2000s. That was the depopulation agenda. War develops fertility. Herbal remedies and drugs develop fertility. That's the depopulation. So much rampant fertility in large families, pandemics and disease, trauma equals fertility. I can speculate why the world wars happened, and then the Vietnam War, and every war thereafter, population boom and then bust, and that's how the system whittled everyone down, from trauma to fertility and then relative extinction. And the system will always have an ace up their sleeve, because who wants to start over again, right? Really? But now I understand the point of war. Yes, it is a depopulation, but no one's forcing anyone to go to the war in the West. People voluntarily join the military. However, their soldiers come back horny as hell with their own issues, fertile. They have hot chicks to come home to if they aren't being cheated on. And everyone's having babies in the military. Not everybody, but many. And it's the fertility that's the crux of the scale down. Okay? I'm not going to read that because I already said that. I was going through a thought process about patsies, developing patsies. All right, I'll say this. When two people are defending themselves, you can't tell who the aggressor is. And so people take sides relative to when they came in on the argument. And you know, people jump in the middle of somebody else's situation all the time. That's activism. That's politics, religion, science, because they have been axe to grind with somebody else, and now you're the target. They just need to release their demons onto you, kind of like a spiritual raid, right? And people get spiritually invaded all the time by those who jump in the middle of somebody else's argument. R-A-P-E, spiritual rape. And then what happens is when they can't identify who's at fault, they look for a patsy. And the system also does that. When the system needs to regulate, they develop patsies, even develop arguments, and then people take sides. And it doesn't matter where it started. It's the infinite chemical reactions of defense, offense, a never-ending tennis match. And at some point, the war must end, and it will, when the other side is so exhausted, they die suddenly. Or in the state and sanctioned government war, they get annihilated by their own opponent, or even themselves. And again, you don't even know when the argument started or where it began, and then all the stories become so tall, and then people become exhausted as they annihilate themselves. Okay. And so, yeah, spirituality is basically war. It's narcissism. Mutually assured destruction. May the best man win. That person must have blocked me when they showed the picture of the farm animal or the pig and the human, understand how close they are to each other. Thus, you shouldn't eat pig and all that stuff. All right. Well, that's fine. They blocked me. But people have their feelings about eating animals, eating pig. And I respect their belief system, right? But remember, everybody gets reduced down to elements, proteins, and microbes. However, animals are sentient beings, and pigs are just as clean as unclean as a human. And it's all relative to how you characterize what clean is. But pigs and humans and animals hold all the same type of microbes, programmed differently. And when certain microbes become too numerous in the body, causing infection, people tend to stop the immune system from releasing, using remedies, developing more offspring. That's the disease. Therefore, they have parasitic infections because they have failed to activate the release process properly, or they wouldn't be blaming the food supply for their health issues. But again, you don't want to torture any animal to be your food supply. That's why you harvest proteins from the animal you want to derive benefit from and grow the proteins in a lab, and then set the animal free, or don't breed animals you do not intend to maintain forever. But it's not wise for humans to starve themselves due to fear and stories. Again, that is the depopulation agenda, and it's infused in religions. And so that person blocked me, so I can't see it. I doubt somebody else can see it. Okay. But there are religions, like even the Jewish religion, like the aggressive Jewish religions, like maybe the Hebrews, that are really into the kosher and they're against eating pig or tripe or shellfish because they say it's unclean. But remember, they're developing babies. They're having sex with each other. When you're taking in microbes from strangers that you become familiar with, how is it any different than eating an animal, whether it's a pig or a cow or a lamb? When you're getting strange ass from people and developing children and families, how is that any different than eating a cow or a lamb or a pig? And yeah, it's going to offend people, but I'm sorry, but we're all reduced down to fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals with a purpose. And so that's where the wars come from, mutually assured destruction. And so when me and John were going back and forth, I'm sure the person read my lead-in and read the comments and basically blocked me. Okay. But that's what you're dealing with. Is you're dealing with people who understand that, yeah, there's nothing unclean. What's unclean is the fact that you don't have an organized plumbing system in your body to release the demons. So that's why you hold so many parasites, which is basically, you have 69 trillion microbes. Some of them are tardigrades, others are hydra. And the hydra turn into tardigrades, the water bears. And they are microscopic. And they also give you a blueprint to work from. And then you have to release the excessive microbes. But staying away from food is not going to release the microbes. It's just going to make the ones you have in your body and the ones that you gain from other foods and air and water and from your friends and family and from strange ass to develop. And then you have issues and you're blaming, well, then now I'm blaming the V's. So you don't eat pig and you're not taking the V's. Now you're blaming those who've eaten pig and taken the V's. But you're not questioning your sexual practices. You're not questioning the fact that you have to be around all your friends and family doing macrobial, public fornication. Because you're mixing microbes together and you're taking your remedies, causing offspring. You ever thought of that? That all your elderberry syrup, your turmeric and your honey, your apple cider vinegar, and all your concoctions that you're selling to your friends and family are developing offspring? And then you have all the dendrophiles, pedophiles, mechanicophiles, people who are attracted to metal objects, and objectophiles. And you have people who like men and like women, and women like women, and men like men. And people who like trees. And I mean, and so then I'm like, hey, release the demons. Hello? Open your immune system. Have an open immune system. My book talks about, I don't go into too much depth because I had to really research the depth, but I've given you basically a skeleton outline of where I'm coming from. You got to have an open immune system. You really have to, so that way, if you are surrounded by people who are dendrophiles, or people who are pedophiles that you have no idea their sexual proclivities because they don't tell you their sexual history or what they do, and you're breathing in all of their microbes. If you have a closed immune system and those microbes become so numerous, imagine what your offspring could be like. Maybe you're not going to practice dendrophilia or pedophilia, but maybe your offspring might, because they're being exposed to all of those influences. Okay? And so then both my armpits this last weekend were sore because the hives I had yesterday, which was on a Saturday or on a Friday, so I said that Saturday, that even my husband saw growing on my neck and then disappearing, are now releasing through my armpit nodes, lymph nodes. That's why you don't block your immune system from releasing. And if it smells bad, it means your body has to release it. I will never ever use deodorant anymore, not even natural deodorant or herbal deodorant. Because all you're doing is developing future cancer later. You're blocking your lymph nodes from releasing the demons. You're blocking your body from releasing because of superficial fears of smelling bad. Or maybe it hurts, so you're putting painkiller medication, pushing all that crap back inside your body. Maybe if it kept releasing, you wouldn't have to smell so bad. Maybe you wouldn't get cancer later on either. And so yesterday or Saturday, I had a lot of energy because I was cooking. I was cleaning the baseboards. I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty clean right there. And I was cooking, and I was making stuff. I was baking. Jesus, I burned myself. So I don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can't, but I did burn, and it hurt. You probably can't see it. I don't know. It didn't blister. Now it probably looks like it. Let me see. Can you see that? I don't know. But it hurt. But I stuck it in. So while I was cooking that pumpkin, oh my God, it took 2 hours to cook that freaking pumpkin loaf. 2 fucking hours. And I had it in a pan that has 4 sides to it. I took out one and I was slipping. I'm like, oh my God, I was about to drop it. So I took my hand without the glove and grabbed it like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I burned myself. Okay. And so I was cooking, I was doing all that, and I was just doing so much stuff. Baking, I made even him the no-bake cookies, made that. The bread was actually pretty good. Okay, so lots of energy on Saturday because we had coffee, right? And we spent around $100 on this week's food. Both my husband and I spent around $100. I think we were $12 over. So he bought his 5 for $25 meat, and then he has $1.59, vegetables, frozen ones, because he's on the truck. And I just buy chicken breast and cream and some kind of like sun-dried tomato sauce and pasta. And I made all that in the spinach. Okay. And so I made everything. I cooked like 4 chicken breasts, and I had a big thing of spinach and the onions. And I bought tomatoes, and I think, tomatoes. And so that's what I made, a whole week's worth of food. Okay? And I even baked the bread, so I had something sweet as a dessert. Baked the pumpkin bread, so I bought the pumpkin puree. And yeah. And so now I have a whole week's worth of food. I'll eat every single day. I'll eat the same thing every single fucking day. And I'm fine with that. Okay? And so we gave ourselves a budget. We lived on that. We lived on less than that. I mean, we've lived in the hotel, paying $500 a week, where we could hardly afford food. And so we go to the McDonald's dollar menu. And then for a treat on a Friday when we get paid after paying our bills and stuff that we had at the time, we go to the Little Caesars $5 pizzas. And that was like a total treat. Okay? I mean, and then we go to the truck. When we were on the truck, we were living off of Chef Boyardee. Okay, eating out of the cans. Then we graduated to eating the $10 pizzas at the gas station pizzas, or the pilot pizzas. The pilot truck stops, right? So that's why it's so important to start from nothing with people you intend to stay with. Because you have the flexibility to have almost nothing and be okay with that. And you still like their company. Because you start out with nothing with them. You had nothing. And you like them because they're a company. See, that's why my husband is so amazing, because it wasn't the money I was attracted to, because he didn't have any fucking money. Neither did I. I came in negative $64,000, so I have student loans. He came in with basically zero, and we built on that. Because he kind of had a relationship that he gave her everything. To Zach's, he gave her everything. Okay? So I came at a negative, he came at a zero, and we built from that. And he's still not responsible for my student loans. I will take care of them at some point. Okay? And so we have the flexibility to live almost nothing and just enjoy each other's company. Because that's why I miss those days when we were riding around in that 1998 Mercedes or something. No, BMW, not Mercedes. No, it was Mercedes, sorry. That broke down eventually. And we were living off of Arizona drinks and dollar menu and $5 Little Caesars pizza, living in a hotel next to pimps and whores and con artists. And you learn that life. You learn their life. You're like, wow, holy shit, there's some suffering. And I'm trying to write resumes for them so they can go work, and they're like, yeah, okay, they're just into drugs and stuff. Or they're into dressing up like a businessman in their hotel room, and they go to the airports and pretend that they lost their car or lost their wallet, and they're asking the businessmen in the airport parking lots for $20. And that's how they feed themselves as they're living in that hotel. There's some con artists out there, some crazy ass, it's crazy when you look at the seedier side of society and you look at where you could end up, but you didn't have to. And that's the American dream, where you see where people end up and they stay there. And then people desire to be better than that. And so to make a little go a long way, you have to set up your systems correctly to stretch a dollar and stretch a protein, because someone doesn't spend so much on food doesn't mean they can biologically afford it. However, that's their responsibility to optimize their own immune system or business process so they can maximize all the nutrients in the food supply, but people don't. So they're like garbage disposal. They eat food, but it doesn't do shit for them and they die anyways. That's the useless eaters of our society. That's what the system is trying to get away from, is the useless eaters. They eat food, it doesn't do anything for them, they die anyways, but they're just consume, like Pac-Man. So that's their responsibility, to optimize their own immune system in their body. Just because I can afford to eat almost basic and make a little go a long way, not everybody can do that because they still have hunger. Even though they're feeding the little offspring in their body, little babies, that's keeping them alive, eventually the parent cells, them, the infrastructure will die. But again, you would have to optimize your business process in your body and maximize the resources that you have so you can live off of nothing and enjoy it. That's why getting rid of all the useless eaters in your body will save you time, money, and pain, and you won't be hoarding things. You won't eat so much in excess that it doesn't do anything for you except wasting your energy acting like a garbage disposal. Useless eaters in your body, they also manifest in the population, but everyone will determine if they are a useless eater. The environment will catalyze the evolutionary process, and you'll determine if you will be a useless eater or a useful eater. That's downsizing. That's business process re-engineering. Cleaning now, and it's a beautiful day, nice and cloudy, but it will warm up 60 degrees today. That was on Saturday. That's BPR. That's what downsizing is. That's what business process re-engineering was. Organizational development back in 2006. They were offering as majors in some of these colleges, adult colleges. They were all about team building, BPR, doing all the IT infrastructure library where you have people come in and develop platforms and implement them in blue chip companies like Chevron, like California Department of Education, like all the different companies that use Microsoft. And so I was able to shadow people who were doing that stuff and learn how they did stuff. And train the brain to understand action, reaction, decision points, mapping out business processes that then you can transfer into biology, into chemistry, into developing another model to work from. That would then save people time and money. What I'm doing right now is saving. If you think about it, if I had a company that had to find a way to optimize and maximize the food supply and longevity, and there was a way to put a value on that company, I would have saved that company billions of fucking dollars on food and consumerism and pain and health issues. But this type of model that I'm doing, you can't force on people. So there's no way to measure the effectiveness of my information because it's all individual responsibility. But if you were to equate what I'm doing to an actual company, I would have saved that company billions of fucking dollars. And that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to save yourself money, time, and pain, and energy, so you don't supernova. And so I'm saving my husband money on food, insurance, consumerism. I'm actually saving my husband money. So when you think about it, I'm helping my own family. And in turn, I'm helping the environment and helping my community. But the business that I'm in is the business of me being a wife and a contributing member of society. And no, I'm not a drain on society or my husband or anyone else around me, because I choose not to be a drain on people and myself and anyone else. And so again, if you are too influential, the system will regulate. And so I Googled something to do with Malcolm X, because I knew that RFK, JFK, MLK, and other people who were taken down by patsies or the system, and you'll never know who it was. You can read the official story, read whatever. But the men exonerated in the Malcolm X killing will receive $36 million. Remember, 50 years. And Leo's sacred number, 50 years. The turnings every 20 years, but every 50 years, some major shit. So 50 years later, the truth comes out. Patsy, but again, when you become too influential, the system regulates. Never try to be too influential when it comes to religion, politics, or even science. But, I mean, it's balanced. But science extremists, the FDA, EPA, FTC, USDA regulates. Okay, so when I came off very influential back in 2016, 2017, 2018, and I was spouting my beliefs, even writing them, putting them on all over everywhere, not understanding exactly how I needed to characterize and what my intention was. Guess who regulated it? It wasn't the FDA. It wasn't even the USDA. It wasn't even the EPA. It was the Federal Trade Commission. Because I wasn't selling a cure. But it was how I was characterizing the J juice and the J world. And so it was the FTC that was the one that regulated me. I wasn't going to be taken out because my intention was not to hurt anyone. My intention was to try to save people. All right. But again, but the road to hell is paved by good intentions. So, yeah, science extremists, the FDA will regulate. The EPA, the FTC, USDA will regulate you. So remember, right now Africa's going through their own evolution with now getting online with the Western ways. And so back when I was in China in 2003, they were voraciously reading Western philosophy. Okay, so when I was talking to the Chinese students when I was there back in 2003, 2004, and when you're bringing in, you have money, because I brought in like, $2,000, so it's like a lot of money, maybe it's 14,000, something like that, or 14 RMB. And so, and of course, Hong Kong, everything cheap goods, and you're around students who are showing you the bookstores that they have, and it's all like Western entrepreneurship, Western philosophy. And they were just so hungry for Western knowledge. Then I'm looking at now online with African influencers. And this guy, A.H. Galani, he is very well read. And he is now promoting all the different Western philosophy. And the people that follow him are voraciously taking in the information. And so I said, good on Mr. Galani. Africa is now trying to level up to Western society. No different than China was way back 20 years ago. And so that's why you travel to third world countries to see, right now, some third world countries are not going to make it, and they will end up underwater someday. But back then in 2000s, that was the precipice of after 9/11, and then before the before then the pandemic and other stuff. Okay, so what did he promote, Galani? Language of Leaders, How Body Language Can Help or Hurt How You Lead, written by Carol Kinsey Goman. And so follow that guy. I mean, see what he's putting out there. Okay? He's trying to get people leveled up in his society. So now, when it comes to the J world, or even just any kind of world, speaking regardless is a great exercise. Remember how I started out when I just was not speaking to the camera? I was speaking, you can hear my voice, but I was pointing the camera towards my supplements and towards the J juice. Speaking regardless is a great exercise. It doesn't matter who's listening. You get used to the sound of your own voice, and you can talk to yourself and glean out ideas. You can get emotions out. Speaking is a great art. It's tough in the beginning, but as you organize your thoughts, it gets easier. And sometimes in the beginning, you have to just babble to get it out. And it's a freeing experience because then you get to express yourself. Because what I was responding to was an article that says that if you want to be a leader, just babble, just talk. It doesn't matter what you talk about. Somebody will just get on there and listen to you. And then when you start developing a thesis about something, and you develop an activist stance or an idea or an opinion, then you develop following. And that's how easy it is to create religion, cultures, cults, and politics and all that. So I love doing Facebook Lives because I can be myself. I can make mistakes and correct myself because I'll listen back. Every single time I do this Facebook Live, I post it and then I listen right back. And then I put it on my website, I transfer it to YouTube, and then post the link of my website with the YouTube. And copy and paste whatever is written in the subject line. And so I'll listen back and hear myself and say, oh, wow, I made a mistake. Oh, here, and then do a correction. Or I might get a revelation out of that, or epiphany. And I'll never forget that mistake. It's also a great way to organize ideas because when you hear yourself, you'll remember, in my opinion, everyone should learn how to speak. And it doesn't have to be perfectly polished at the beginning, but you can work on polishing up your thoughts and expression. And it might be too soon for some people. Sometimes people have to release those demons and go through the process. Luckily, we have, let's say, up to 2050 for some people before shit goes crazy, and who knows how crazy it'll get. But during that process, polish up the way you do things, the way you say things, how you think, where you're going to live, how do you prepare for devastation, natural or synthetic or whatever. How do you survive and still keep polishing up your evolution? Toastmasters, I did that a couple of years ago, was a great training ground. And then sometimes you have to just stumble on your own to learn. And so those who speak emerge as leaders regardless of intelligence. Okay? That's all relative. All right. And then I guess this thing, yeah. Excuse me. And so I posted the pictures of the tardigrades and the hydra. Okay, so you are 69 trillion hydra, and I said that in my book here. You are 69 trillion hydra. All right? Evolving to tardigrade, developing infrastructure. And every single time you exchange hydra, that's called a virus, vital information resource under siege. That's why you don't attack parasites in your body, because they fight back and they will kick your ass. You never attack the life in your body. You release them. You feed them. Look like a good host. And you release the excessive guests in your body, the ones who overstay their welcome. That's why you have an immune system. That's why you have 12 different systems. You see the closed systems in the hydra, where they have the suckage point, where then they clamp on to whatever the other host is to go and evolve. That's like a virus. Little hydra that have that bottom part. That's why viruses look like the way they do. They look like hydra. Okay? And so you see the closed system of the hydra because they have to stick to something in order to upload the information. It's the tardigrade with the two openings. Like you have a mouth, you have an anus. So you're like one big tardigrade with the hydra. You're a compilation of tardigrade and hydra. You want to have an open system so you can evolve. And so when you have an open system, you release the demons, you take in more of the information through aerosol hydra. Microbes. And the energy also has a way to project. And those are all the ghosts and the demons in your world. Okay? So now you're seeing in the diet suddenly groups, the person says, help, I don't trust any of them. My son never took it. What is it? The vaccine, but was just diagnosed as diabetic. He's only 16. Anyone done research on insulin? The white coats say there's no alternative, and I'm over here freaking out. And you see people recommending everything under the sun. So I said the aggressive climate change is activating his immune system. The antibodies, which are the growth, right, stuck in his body are obviously disabling some of his hormones, and they are recommending fasting and using other remedies. That poor kid. So all of what causes all the different diseases, the fact that you're taking in the diversity that has different programming, and some of that programming could be disabling or even turning the switch of on and off to your hormones. And so when you have a bunch of colony forming units that are now lessening your ability to develop insulin in response to sugar, people don't realize that they have to release a demon so that way their body can regulate and develop insulin to regulate the sugar. And so then they get the sugar shock. They get sugar shock and they have to take something to help their body promote the insulin, or they take insulin. And so that's what I'm saying. You got to release the demons because you don't know what kind of programming that is turning and switching your hormones on and off. And so you need food to give your body the ability to go and develop its own regulatory system. But when you use the medical holistic energy healing world to regulate you, you're going to have things that happen like this. So they never took the V, but they're around people and breathing in all the microbes that are programmed to disable this kid's ability to develop insulin. And so he has now an abundance of sugar in his blood. And then they're demonizing sugar. Now you see all those all over Facebook. Oh, sugar is like the demon. No, you're missing the salt. You have a bunch of demons that are disabling your insulin production process. You're starving yourself. You can't tell them that. So you just watch everybody suffer. Okay. So then this guy Lionel Anderson, I'm going to say his name, because he's right about a lot of stuff. It doesn't mean that there's solutions he have I would necessarily agree with, but it doesn't even matter. Okay, people do what they do. They're the balancing force. And they would say, I'm the balancing force, relative to how you perceive. Okay, so he posted, we are energy source for interdimensional parasites. All the turmoil in this world aims to exploit the loosh we emanate. Loosh referring to the emotional energy radiated by animals and humans in dire circumstances that entail intense, severe pain and suffering in the body and psyche. Yeah, once you release those demons, there won't be that much loosh energy. You won't be attracting parasites. That's exactly what's going on. As people are full of the demons in their body, they're attracting parasites. Okay? And that means people in their world, in their body, mind, and spirit, even the demons out there that are in the other side. When you hold so much diversity in your body that has so much turmoil and diversity and trying to survive, that's just all the orbs around my head a year or so ago during a frequency change. And I still held a lot of diversity within, a lot of turmoil within. And so imagine those that do Facebook Lives and you could see the orbs if they are, I don't know what people do when they do Facebook Lives. Do they actually see the orbs that are around them? Do they do transmissions long enough to observe? Do they have the right background so you can see the orbs? People should do more Facebook Lives so they can see what they attract. Not only on their Facebook Lives, but also in their environment. Because devices capture energy. And so we can be an energy source for interdimensional parasites if you're so full of conflict. And you see that all the activists are full of conflict. And so they're attracting the demons. And they have a huge following. So I said, I'm posting this because he's not wrong. The diversity from fertility, from all the suffering, is what feeds those who cannot feed themselves, the dead, the living. Okay, so when you get all this fertility, there's so much diversity, then all that energy, those little babies, those chaotic babies that cause so much turmoil and drama, they're basically food for the parasites, food for the vampires. When you're developing children who really don't have a purpose in life, really, because what's their purpose going to be? What are they going to do? Well, yeah, you take them to school, but if they don't have what it takes really to if they don't have what it takes and they're always full of disease and behavioral problems and everything else, then when you have to be regulated by the government, you have to be regulated by your environment, like by, the government, the medical holistic energy healing world. Now you're food for vampires. When you're marrying your kids off to some guy that looks good on paper or not, they'll be food for the vampires who cannot feed themselves. They will be used as a tool. That's why it's so dangerous for kids in our society growing up with parents who don't really have a purpose, who have a lot of trauma, not a lot of purpose, haven't fixed their own issues. And they're in a community where what kind of opportunities are in their community? It's like you literally have to develop, some people are lucky they hit the genetic lottery in their environment, and they might be able to gravitate towards something specific in school if they're allowed to study that in school. Because to see if you have the gift of understanding concepts, you'd have to be able to go to school every day and be able to express your reaction to the concepts that are being taught and show that you can pass all the different tests above and beyond your peers. If your peers even allow you to exist, if they haven't bullied you to death. Which some of these kids are faced with. They're faced with being different. They're not allowed to express their gifts because of their peers and their family and friends. And so you may have a lot of unrealized potential because of people's associations with their family, their friends, and their peers. And so then they become food for the dead and the living. That's why drama attracts parasites, people who are attracted to dramatic energy, the demons of the dead world and the awakening world. That's why my information, you must release the demons so you don't attract them and then they don't feed off of you. And so I want to post this because he's not wrong, but you can save yourself, all of those who feed off of you in the dead world and the waking world. And you won't have so many demons swirling around you like orbs. And you'll become a ghost flesher. As far as the ancestors like the Sumerian pantheon, you have the opportunity to free yourself. And there's some good guys and there's some bad guys. Okay? And to say this guy was good, I mean, where did Noah come from? He came from, he was a giant, but where did he come from? He came from probably the Sumerian pantheon. Which was the good giant? Which was the bad giant? You hear everyone like talking smack about the Sumer. There's some reptilian type, but there's also other ones that weren't so deadly, I guess. Remember, people are like, oh God, he's reptilian. The reptilian brain, okay, yeah. But some people have also the evolution where they evolved the reptilian brain out of their body and they're able to then become a peaceful human being. As far as ancestors like the Sumerian pantheon, you have the opportunity to free yourself, but it is painful. But yes, humans served a purpose for many years, and they have enslaved each other and the animals. And now it's time to free humans, make them a lot more intelligent, working on in conjunction with the machines. That way, the machines can be the slaves for the humans, because who programs the machines? It's the humans. But I want you to read that guy's post because it'll give you another thought process to consider. Take what you want, leave the rest. It's good to be exposed to all types of stories, even mine. There's so much going on in this world, and the more you read other people's ideas, the more you'll develop your own thesis. Enjoy all the information. The world is quite exciting. You are alive during the most exciting times of human history. Okay? And so, it's hard to deal with somebody else's criticism or say, okay, this is good or this is bad. And so when people share my information, they might put their own lead in and say, well, I agree with her with this, but not this. And I don't go and see who shares my information and be like, I did a couple of years ago when they shared something, but they mischaracterized what I was sharing or they took it a different direction. But now I don't care. You can share my information, say what you want about it. Who cares? But people like that one post with the pigs. Well, that person either blocked me or Facebook took it off. I couldn't tell you which one it was. But not everyone's going to like how I characterize their information. It's okay. I don't like how you characterize the information. Who cares? But some will have a hard time hearing another person's thought process. And I completely understand. I was there too. But I wanted you to see Lynell Anderson's post. So that way you can read the stories that they have in the comment lines. You can so you might read his information and just stay there and then not evolve or not look at anything else. And that's okay too. That's the risk you run when you expose people to information. They may just not evolve. They may see that next information and just stay there. But that's their choice until they evolve or they die. There's two choices in life. And I know I can't convert people. I can't take them from square one to square 50. They got to go through action, reaction, story, storyline after storyline. And they may get lost and stay stuck in this one storyline and never ever get past that. And that's okay. That's the nature of exposing information. It doesn't matter because they weren't meant to live anyways if that's where they stay stuck. If they stay stuck instead of one, but they stay stuck in 50 storylines, but they could have a chance to save themselves at the 60th storyline. But you can't, if they don't have a capacity to get past beyond the 50th storyline, then they had fun between 1 and 50. Okay? That was their life. Is that they were in one storyline and they were exposed to 50 more, and then they stopped there and they died there. Well, hey. But that's the gamble. It's always a gamble. But what are you gambling? I mean, that's why you don't want to have a high expectation that when you expose people to information, they'll save themselves. You just give them the chance. You give them the options. You saved yourself, if you understand whatever that means. But you give people options, and then you learn how to characterize and explain yourself. So then this is where I'm like, this is why the holistic world is a joke. I'm sorry. Okay, so back when we were all afraid of radiation, and we were talking about Fukushima, and then all the different, like Chernobyl and World War II and all that, and even through all this Wi-Fi stuff. And so they're like, oh, we got to do a detox and do the zeolite and all that. And zeolite is aluminum and silicon. And there's other detoxes that use a lot of mercury and other stuff. I won't say mercury, but other things that are very heavy metals. People doing the heavy metal detoxes using heavy metals. And I'm like, what do you use? Why are you using heavy metals to detox you from heavy metal? I didn't understand that. And so I wrote, this is why the holistic world is a joke. I'm sorry. Their offspring are going to love aluminum. Okay, so when I Googled, what do you use zeolite for, right? And I knew we were using that to do a detox for radiation. Zeolites are minerals, basically heavy metals, right? And other stuff that contain mainly aluminum. Okay, so minerals could be salt to activate the aluminum. That's why I don't deal with cell salts, because cell salts are basically dealing with certain specific heavy metals that are activated by sodium. So you get sodium fluoride, sodium chloride, sodium zeolite. And so let's read this. Those are minerals that contain mainly aluminum and silicon compounds. They're used as drying agents, detergents, and in water and air purifiers. Zeolites are also marketed as a dietary supplement to treat cancer, diarrhea, autism, herpes, and hangovers, and to balance pH and remove heavy metals in the body. Okay. What is the chemical formula of a zeolite? Metal ion. And so sodium is part of it. Sodium is an activation. And there's other stuff. Minerals, right? And so I wrote, now you see why there's so much diversity in the world, the holistic world, the royalty of sexual diversity, right? Because then you're using colloidal silver. What kind of offspring of fertility will silver develop in that child, in that offspring, right? Now you see why there's so much sexual diversity in the world. The holistic world, the royalty of sexual diversity, and there's no limits. But some will land you in jail. Mechanicophilia, or mechaphilia, is a paraphilia involving a sexual attraction to machines, such as bicycles, cars, helicopters, and airplanes. Mechanicophilia is treated as a crime in some nations, with perpetrators being placed on a sex offender list or register after prosecution. And so people are like, oh my God, heavy metal in foods. Well, I'm not afraid of heavy metals in my food because I have an open immune system. And I'm not using aggressive elements to pair with any heavy metals. Okay, so when you're taking straight sodium fluoride and it's not mixed parts per million that is FDA approved in the water or in the toothpaste or in air, then yeah, you're activating a very aggressive heavy metal. It's the extracts that hold the aggressive elements that activate those heavy metals in offspring and diversity. Very influential offspring, diversity, and even fertility. And it's in those remedies, those extracts. And so then I was like, hey, and she's on Friday. That's what I was going like, I'm all so full of energy on Friday and talking about sexual diversity and orientation, knowing the holistic world has contributed so much to that because of their remedies and herbal remedies and detoxes. And so sexual diversity comes from all the different remedies, and people have self-inflicted diversity and fertility in their body. and you have no idea what kind of remedies they have taken, and you're breathing in their microbes full of hormones and sexual diversity. The joke's on you. What hormones turn a person LGBTQ? Being exposed to so many females and males and mixture of the two, and it's not necessarily exchanging sexual fluids. A compilation of your environment, nature and nurture, right? Your immune system, all food, air, water, and social interactions. You breathe in hormones from all types of people via their aerosol spittle, and then the programming, the TV and the movies, and friends and families and parents and who knows, siblings. And then you feel how you feel. Your sexual hormones develop from all exposures in the world. So there, shut up about blaming one thing or another. A closed immune system will take on the most predominant sexual characteristics stuck in that gut. Like I said in my book, open up your immune system, release those demons. You want to calm down your sexuality, disease, infection, cancer, whatever it is, slow the F down, release the demons, and eat food, and stop being so tunneled. And watch out for the alchemists out there. The remedies might turn you into some kind of sexual orientation. It doesn't matter what it is. Diversity comes from aggressive fertility, and it is a crapshoot how the sexuality manifests. And it comes from a mixture of company, of people around remedies and protocols you have used, and everyone who's around you have used. Even gay men exchange bodily fluids, developing microbial offspring, like gay women and straight people. Their microbes develop offspring. Now look at those who are doing all the orgies and sexual freedom and all that other shit. You know, just one big orgy of bacteria fornicating all over the place in climate change, shaking my head. If you're taking tree bark extract, you might be attracted to trees and hug them and tree hugger. Have an objectification relationship with them. Using heavy metal detox and other stuff, you might fall in love with metal objects. All your remedies may turn you into sexual diversity. And then dendrophilia, or less often arborophilia or dendrophilia, literally means the love of trees. The term is sometimes referred to as a paraphilia, in which people are sexually attracted to or sexually aroused by trees. This may involve sexual contact or veneration as a phallic symbol, or both. Then you see the big monument with all the symbols, hieroglyphics, the obelisks, the vaccines, the guy's penis. All have to do with inserting information into people. Mechanicophilia or mechaphilia is a paraphilia involving a sexual attraction to machines such as bicycles, cars, helicopters, and airplanes. Mechanicophilia is treated as a crime in some nations. Okay, I read that. Okay, this is what you get when you are around people in the health and wellness world using remedies causing so much fertility and diversity. And you are around these people daily in your crowded places. Since you don't know who you're around and what they've done, maybe you should open up your immune system and release the demons, or be cannibalized by them. Now go look at your holistic groups, and they're recommending you all the different herbal extracts. See how that works? The system got to you through your friends and family and all the remedies. Pandora's box has been open for at least 3 years, if not more. Because when that atmosphere changed, just like that, at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, that's when all of your fertility from all your remedies and surgeries and every single thing that you brought into your body that was kind of like cured, the system woke up your immune system. Then you get the predators, the sexual orientations, you get all the activists, and you get more remedies to compound it, more fertility. That was the depopulation. It was the massive amounts of fertility. Massive. Cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, everything. So then with the men, psychologically and biologically inflexible males, females, non-binaries will die sooner than those who are flexible in their thought process and biology. Your kids will pick up on the inflexibility and break in the wind if you do not give them another thought process to consider. Hence the diets of the athletes full of muscle and testosterone and anger. And that's what they're saying. Men are going to be phased out in the future because they're inflexible. Not all of them, but some of them are highly full of testosterone, are inflexible. Because men are men. My husband's a man. And so when women have male babies, during that time, they had a lot more testosterone. And it could be catalyzed by the prescription drugs, by the hormones they hold at the time of conception. That's why they get males narcissic, because of the testosterone balance of hormones during the time of conception. That's why there's a lot more females than males, because females are the ones that hold that kind of gatekeeping of the sexuality or of the genders. Because when you have a female with a lot of testosterone and you have a male, the sperm and the egg, and then there's a lot more testosterone in the female because of conditions during that time. Because you could have 3 kids, 2 females, 1 male. Well, where had the male? What was going on during that time that she had a kid that was a male? And it could have been a pretty aggressive time where she was very assertive during that time. Aggressive. High testosterone during that time. Okay? That's why you get males in our society. Because the female also holds that during that time. Dominant, recessive. And so your kids will pick up on the inflexibility and break in the wind if you do not give them another thought process to consider. Hence the die suddenly athletes full of muscle, testosterone, and anger. Although in several species of birds and animals, testosterone increases male-female, male-male aggression, in human males it has been suggested to instead promote both aggressive and non-aggressive behaviors that enhance social status. And some women hold so much testosterone, making them brutal. But the estrogen can also be just as brutal, as the excessive female hormones want to screw everything because of the pheromones attracting aggression. Which is why the war between the sexes and the hormones, genders, it's in a deadly war, a formidable war, a fight to the death. Why the funeral? Why? The funeral, who died first? But before the funeral, it was the battles before the funeral is why kids, animals, and adults become maimed in the process. Medical, holistic, sex and love, drugs, etc., addictions, religion, oh boy. But you see who dies first. The parent usually dies first. Which parent? The weakest one. Then the kids. But which kid will die first? The weakest one. The battle is deadly. Why men often die earlier than women? Because men are 50% more likely than women to die of heart disease. The fact that men have lower estrogen levels than women may be part of it. So that's why now you're seeing more of the feminization of men, because it might actually give them a lot longer longevity. It's the males, it's the alpha males are so full of testosterone that think that, oh, I'm a man's man. Okay, you'll die a man because you won't have the evolution to bring in something to balance out your testosterone. And you'd be like, oh my God, I don't want to bring in the estrogen. So if you're all about making men, okay, they die sooner. The fact that men have lower estrogen levels than women may be part of the reason. No, you're not turning men into girly men, but you are giving them a chance to evolve, not self-sabotage as these health gurus always talk about. They are the epitome of the alpha males full of testosterone as they are lifting their weights and kissing their biceps, swaggering around like King Coxman, expecting all the women to kiss the ring on their finger. Kiss the testicle ring or kiss the cock ring, right? On their finger. Really? Nope, turn off. Short life for Coxman. Okay. Their brutality uses up so much energy. That's funny, I know, Grace. One must calm your shit down so you can live another day. What's the point of resisting what's going on and afraid to die when your hormone levels are the very thing that will contribute to a die suddenly? Men need to balance out their hormones so they don't die suddenly. And they have a chance to evolve. And then they have a chance to evolve. And they don't have to be a girly man, right? But you know how inflexible some men are. And some of their wives won't let them change. And their friends won't let them change. That's why men are sacrificed in our society. The women suck the life out of them. Their male friends make fun of them. And men feel they have to look fit and be so strong for everyone around them. No one gives these men a chance or a break. Not even their male friends. That's why it will be a woman's world in the future. The men do themselves in, and the women in their world help them out. You did it to yourself. That's why I'm a very different wife. I won't destroy my husband, who I respect. I will temper all extremes, if I can. Because I don't want to die in the process of becoming somebody else's supernova. Because of somebody else's supernova. Can you say the same thing? Now you see why the patriarchal religions will not last. Because the men are brutal to their wives, even in the third world countries. Traditions are brutal to the women. I will not name the religions because all of them hold some kind of patriarchal lineage. But some religions are more flexible than others. Others, women are thrown back to the dark ages. And the men rule with an iron fist. Those days will end in the future because the men will have a hard time during climate change. Their hormones won't let them survive unless they evolve. When it comes to sexual reproduction, brutal assertive wives will have boys. Now look at the women who have children, and mostly boys. Assertive women have an 80% chance of surviving, of having a son, because they have higher levels of testosterone. The maternal domination theory is the secretion of the testosterone in women increase under stress, and hormone levels affect after uterus having a gatekeeping role over which sperm gets the egg. Do women have a chance to make, do women having babies, having boys, make it harder for them to potentially evolve and survive climate change? Well, you guys have had sons. You might have to spend more time going through the process of releasing the demons. Okay? I didn't have a kid, so I had to deal with everything else. But when you have a kid, then those hormones they have to be released. Some of them have to be regulated, and it's going to take time. So do women having boys make it harder for them to potentially evolve and survive climate change? You will tell me. And so you know about Audrey, and you know about John. Both of them have kids, because I named them in my book. Okay? And they have grandkids. Well, kids. Some of them are boys. So we're all going to be observed. And I had no kids. I'm type O. I'm sure Audrey is type O type of thing. John's like a type A or B. So we're all going to be observed during this process. So then, truth is brutal. So I showed you the picture of Eye of Horus, Eye of Ra. There's a difference, okay? It's the way, yeah. What I put in my book, I don't even know if this is the eye. Yeah, this is the Eye of Horus. I think, yeah, this is the Eye of Horus, and there's the Eye of Ra, and there's male, female energy. And so we're going to scale down. The Eye of Ra, or the Eye of Ra Horus, symbolizes power, fury, violence. It was the Eye of Ra and the sun, the embodiment of Ra's daughter. Ra sent his daughter to punish his disrespectful followers, leading the eye to be associated with power, violence. And so you saw then, of course, Hollywood and the whole one-eyed shit, okay? And even the eye on top of the pyramid and all that. And so that actually shows you, that's the Hydra with all the information, with the monument, right? The big phallic symbol. And that's vaccines, that's a male's penis, and that's the monument, that's the obelisks. And then you have the pineal gland too, that controls your melatonin, your circadian rhythms. And with the way climate change is, that's going to influence your circadian rhythms, even through the time change too. So much is going on. So my book's symbolism on the back of the Eye of Ra or the Eye of Horus is acknowledging that what the system is actually representing right now. And yes, I was angry in my book. You can tell the tone of the anger in my book. The system is punishing disrespectful followers, and it is brutal. Fertility and war is brutal. Very, very brutal. Recognize your own brutality and find a way to release the demons and quell the brutality in your body, mind, and spirit. So I might come off brutal, but you're choosing to engage in my information. So if I'm brutal to you through this information, you're choosing to tune in. It's when you're out there in the public and you're accosting someone and being brutal with your language, with your mannerisms, even striking at somebody. We have people who do that in relationships, okay? In occupations, on the street. And so it's really brutal out there when you are in face-to-face company with people who don't like you and don't want to see you exist. And so recognize your own brutality and find a way to release the demons and quell that brutality in your body, mind, and spirit. Hot, angry religious chicks and men are brutal. Activism is brutal. And medical, holistic, surgical, veterinary system are brutal because you're face-to-face with someone who is now cutting you open with scalpels or penetrating you with a penis, with an object, or with a knife, or with even a surgical instrument, or a syringe. Your friends and family are brutal right now. Just look at their activism and what they do in each other's company. Your brutality is at the surface and spilling over. Your humor is brutal to whomever you are spoofing. The music industry is brutal. Your occupation is brutal. The surgical system and the veterinary system is brutal. Greed is brutal. Slavery is brutal. Family is very brutal. Love is brutal. Religion, politics, and science can be brutal. The sports industry is very brutal, obviously. The porn industry, brutal. Yes, the fashion industry is brutal. The prison system, complex is brutal. Your addictions are brutal to everyone around you and to yourself. Your children are brutal to other children. You just don't see them. You don't see them all the time. You don't see them every day. You don't see everything. But we know kids are brutal to each other on the schoolyard, behind closed doors, out there on the street. And war is the most brutal of all because we keep breeding people who are brutal. Need I say more? Evolution is fucking brutal. The scale down is activating your brutal neighbors to do what they were legally trained to do. And so as long as it is FDA approved and sanctioned by your government, by the way, you can be strong, resilient, and adaptable and evolving without being brutal. People who are dying are literally brutal to everyone around them. Just ask home hospice nurses dealing with the dementia patients. You can only imagine the abuse loved ones take from the people they are taking care of. When people are dying, they are fucking brutal. And some people die a lot longer than others, and so people around them have to deal with their brutality. People aren't living longer, they're dying longer, and they're destructive. That's why the systems are trying to switch up, because they gotta release the brutality. That's why you live amongst the walking dead, people who are dying and destructive and brutal to those who are alive, and you have to recognize brutality in other people, especially when they're dying. And if you're strong enough to be married to someone who's a bit more brutal than others, negotiate life. Don't let anyone's brutality destroy you. That's part of the release process. If you have more life in you than death, brutality is going to come out, but you will also find a way to temper that. And the system is also trying to heat up, so those who are that brutal will just die suddenly. Now you see why men will be compromised if they don't get their shit together. The testosterone is what makes them very brutal. Now you get it. Okay? And then I said, here's an example of people screwing themselves. The payload comes in different forms, pardon the pun, and it's a vector full of information. Some people don't really eat, they just pop pills and supplements, herbs and do drugs, DEW or DO, direct energy weapon drugs. Literally direct energy weapon drugs, and they wonder why their kids are dying suddenly. Get a clue. When your pineal gland stops functioning because of climate change and many other factors, always being awake, so awake, you supernova, too much light turns into die suddenly, the darkness. That is why the supplements market and the cannabis market sells you sleep aids. The critters, the offspring inside of you have disabled your ability to balance your circadian rhythms. Circadian rhythms. And the system of supplements and drugs, even alcohol, keeps you hooked on the addictions to develop synthetic ways to sleep or be awake, right? There's indica, sativa. One of them puts you to sleep, the other one keeps you awake. I just realized that a couple of years ago. The whole fluoride calcifies your pineal gland might be true in a closed system, but where do the little critters of antibodies who have aided in the calcification process come from? Your herbs and remedies helping you sleep, right? Developed offspring to work against you in the alchemy market. Your hands shoving supplements down and herbs down your throat are vectors, like a needle or a penis or an obelisk. You have screwed yourself in the holistic medical market, period, point blank. And you let others screw you with their penis, vector, needle, scalpel, and oncology. You train your body to be dependent on the drugs and supplements and herbs to do what food, rest, and release, and pain could have done. And it would have been far more cheaper in the long run, giving you longevity too. And things to know. What hormone does the pineal gland produce? Melatonin is the only known hormone synthesized by the pineal gland, and it's released in response to darkness, hence the name, the hormones of darkness. Melatonin provides a circadian and seasonal signal to the organism in vertebrates. And so when you're taking melatonin supplements and then taking their cannabis and other things, yeah, you have antibodies that have fucked with your pineal gland. And so now when it gets dark, I sleep pretty good. I sleep very well. And when at 5:30 in the morning, my body, I'm sneezing, I'm blowing my nose, I'm coughing. Well, not really coughing, but I'm sneezing and blowing my nose, then I know I have to poop. That's why I release the demons. I wake up, and then it's light outside. By the time I wake up, like 5:30, when it's still dark, and then by 6:30, almost 7, the sun's rising, and I'm awake. And then by 5 tonight, I'll be going to sleep, relaxing. All right? And so, but sometimes, like on Friday, it was like all day. I was so like full of growth and energy. So then that's why I'm making the connection with obelisks and vaccines and penises, right? destruction of the two major obelisks like the Twin Towers, the phasing out of the male-driven society, and as well as capitalism. So you have the suicide bombers, or the suicide plane people, and you have the capitalism. Those met like this, and that was, they're signifying people who actually are who are offing themselves, literally, as well as other people. Just think about 9/11, it was the symbology of people destroying themselves through their own personal spiritual suicide, through politics, religion, and science. And then also getting rid of the capitalism and the major crazy capitalism and those who are all about money and wealth and prestige. And so the destruction of the two major obelisks like the Twin Towers, the phasing out of the male-driven society, and that too. I can't prove any of it as 9/11 conspiracy theorists, so haha, choose your own adventure. But the symbols are like footnotes. One must know the backstory, or they just take the front story for face value. And again, that was just one story that I put out there, but I put another story out there that, yes, the suicide bomber, because it was the Muslims, Mohammad Atta, and those, part of Saudi Arabia, and maybe Afghanistan, and Iran, or Iraq. Again, that was then kicked off the Iraq invasion, as well as Afghanistan and all that. And so you have that story too. People who are, so there's so many storylines that everything that you've ever hear about right now in positive religion science and the remedies world and oncology and all the fears and everything was wrapped up in 9/11. Oh, that's fucking amazing. And so the symbols are like footnotes. One must know the backstory, or they just take the front story for face value. And the front story was just as valid because you had, again, people who commit suicide to destroy others. And what people do when they're taking the remedies and their surgeries and everything else, and they're projecting how it's everybody's fault but not their own, that's no different than those that are in the planes crashing into the buildings. It's not that different when people personally self-sabotage and take everyone around them down with them. And that's exactly what happened in those planes. They sabotaged themselves and they took down others with them. And that's what people in politics, religion, science, and the health and wellness do. They self-sabotage and they take down everyone around them with them. That's why you get all the narcissists and the activism. And then now you see 9/11 happen everywhere. All the activists. They are 9/11. An obelisk is a tall, four-sided, narrow, tapering monument that ends in a pyramid-like shape or pyramiding at the top. The ancient Egyptian word for obelisk was tekken, but we know obelisk by their Greek name obeliskos, a humorous name meaning a little skewer. Obelisks are stone pillars erected at the monuments that usually consist of a pyramid at the top, a rectangular base, and then the ancient Egyptians created the form at some point in the early dynastic period, 3150 C. They were erected to commemorate an individual's an event and honor the gods of information, evolution, adaptation, and even destruction. Obelisks can be found in countries throughout the world, from Washington, D.C. to Paris or France. Other people, including the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, produced obelisks after Egyptian models, although not generally carved from the single block or stone. And that's even all the totem poles. Think about in the Indians, the totem poles, another one. All the shamans with their walking canes, their sticks. What is it, abracadabra? What is it, the wizard people? Harry Potter and, all that stuff. Yeah, that's all phallic. And the orchestra. The guy, the conductor, doing orchestra stuff. So all types of sexuality in the vaccines are gene editing. Hanging out in your crowds and churches are contributing to the gene editing. And the offspring of what's going to destroy you from being around that many people all the time in a highly influential environment. Gay, straight, whatever, you're altering the DNA through mixing fluid. That's evolution. That's war. That's competition. That's gene editing. Therapy is no different than traditional sex missionary position. Gene editing. Gene editing equals penis, vector, needle, surgery, insects, families, friends, and crowds. But are you supporting the editing process effectively, or are you just a protein donor in the medical holistic system and then die anyways? That's why the system will phase out men if they don't really get their shit together, because we, or the system, does not need your penis anymore. Some people like the pleasure because they are deteriorating. But once you get it past wanting to procreate, you won't need the penis like that anymore. Again, it's a transition. And so the needles and the crowds and the climate change will cause evolution. And sexuality will be tempered. Literally, it has to, or people will fuck themselves out of existence. But we have a lot of people to go through, so they want you to screw everyone out of existence. And when we're down to 500 million in the future, the system will not advocate you screwing your neighbors out of existence. Pardon my French. That's what you're facing. Now you understand the symbols of obelisks. Everything is in plain sight. Okay, then the Greek columns can symbolize power, agelessness, and the roots of democracy. The three classical orders of Greek columns are Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. Doric columns, these columns are plain, straightforward, and thicker and heavier than the other style. They are sometimes associated with strength and masculinity. Corinthian column, like Corinthians and like in the Bible, these columns have a decorative bell-shaped capital with volutes, 2 rows of acanthus leaves, and an elaborate cornice. Different arrangements and shapes can symbolize the strength and masculinity of men or the feature of women. Ionic columns. So then you have the Corinthians of love, right? They're about, love is patient, love is kind. Yeah, okay. Ionic columns. These columns are later than the Doric and Corinthian styles. Is it Ionic or Ionic? I guess it's Ionic. All right, so you can Google all that. That's architecture. So I'm going back in time showing you how I got to my thought process. And since I can't prove needles back in the Neolithic age, the vector was the penis, the needle that caused evolution and also population decline and control. And that's why in the future, men might be phased out if they don't get their shit together. Okay? And so I heard long tones and beeps, whatever. And so then I wrote this again. Penis, needle, Neolithic, natural vaccines, vector processing, hanging out with my hubby and being married to him has made me stronger, but I'll never go overboard with that. What do you mean by vector processing? We can simply define vector processing as a process of using vectors to store a large number of variables for higher intensity data processing. So what do you think of a vaccine? It's a vector. It's a high amount of information to store large amounts of variables for higher intensity data processing. Okay, you think the obelisks or the monuments, the obelisks that have all those symbols, that's a lot of data. A vector is a quantity of phenomenon that has 2 independent properties, magnitude and direction. For example, velocity, momentum, force, electromagnetic fields, and weights are all vectors. So imagine a man with a penis, okay? And he's a quantity of phenomenon that has 2 independent properties, magnitude, direction, velocity, momentum, force, electromagnetic fields. A guy, his semen is full of all that information. And weight are all vectors. Geometrically, a vector can be pictured as a directed line segment. The length of the line is the magnitude of the vector, and an arrow indicates the direction. The direction of the vector is from its tail to its head. Okay? Vectors can be used to describe many things, including velocity, acceleration, displacement, magnetic fields, electric fields. Vectors can also be used in animation and engineering design systems. Vector graphics can facilitate movement of images via animation. Computer-aided design applications use vector graphics because of their scalability and ability to easily work with complex mathematical, scientific, and engineering formulas. Now you're seeing where Imhotep understood the power of vectors and fertility and operations and alchemy and architecture, engineering. And that's Silicon Valley, engineering, people, places, and things, religions, politics, science. Okay? So then, this is for all people who are like advocating, everybody should take a V. Okay, fine. Take a V if you want to take a V. I don't care. It's not my place for you to say you should or not. Remember this. I don't have to take a V in order to derive benefits from them. I just hang out with people who are V'd. VACCINATED. And take on the benefits. Release the demons and become extremely highly adaptable. So if you're taking a vector and I get exposed to you because you're a vector yourself, whether it's through sexual, but my husband's the only sexual person I will be with. But if I'm in a conversation with you and you have a vector of emotion or vector of a sneeze, like aerosol, and I breathe in that information, then you are a vector of releasing your data into my soul, and I'm breathing it and going through the assimilation process. And so I will release the demons and become extremely highly adaptable, and food will never ever be poisoned because food is FDA approved and therefore not poison. Symptoms are the adaptation, and that is how those in the West might have an edge over those in Africa once they reach the tipping point of fertility. Because Africa will go through their own depopulation, their own aggressive realizing that they have to evolve or die. And their day will come, just like our day has come right now. Hanging out with Veed people in Ohio has made me stronger and smarter and more adaptable. That is evolution. I had to assimilate to Ohioans out here, and they're some tough, strong people. Okay? Hey, James Conway. Nice to see you. Been a long time since Hawaii. My husband is a strong, strong, strong man. And for me to survive his microbes, I had to really toughen up in body, mind, and spirit. Okay? I had to survive his family. His family's a tough family. They have great intentions. I was just different. And how do you bring different together? Well, it doesn't always work. Okay? But her husband came from a very strong, strong line of people. Strong stock, strong background. And I brought in some knowledge from my world. And those two worlds came together, and here we are. So when you think about it, that was the missing link between Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens, right? You had the Denisovans, but it was the gene editing that made the hominids more advanced and the changes in their food to meat, milk, and gruel, but they had to shit their brains out occasionally, release the demons, take on the innovation. Since I can't prove actual needles, back in the Neolithic times, then it was the penis, the vector, that caused the evolution. And also population decline and population incline. Some of you are regressing in body, mind, and spirit, and now you are in the decline. So then, I'm looking at Africa. Okay, I'm looking at where they're going and where they're coming from, what they're doing. And seeing them look at whether or not what the roles of men and women are, what they think the roles of men and women are based upon the patriarchal society that they came from, yes. And even the royalty society, because they have their own royalty in Africa. And then what we have adopted back in the 1950s and evolved from the 1960s. So now you get to look in the mirror when you look at Africa. The same model has been applied to Africa. Remember how strong and sturdy they are. And look at you. Do you really think you can biologically compete with them? Unless you learn how to evolve. The Africans were raised in a very hot climate. Many of them are extremely strong and robust and high endurance. Remember, the Ethiopians are running for miles. They beat everyone in the Olympics all the time. But they're doing the same thing we're doing. It's like looking into a mirror. That's why you must understand the world you live in, or you'll be traumatized. And the MLMers in Africa and Indonesia and Pakistan are selling their herbal remedies to everyone who allows them to spam your posts with their WhatsApp numbers. No different than all the crunchy mommies and me groups spamming their doctors, naturopathists, and supplements people as a solution in the holistic group on your page. Okay, so when you're seeing all the mommy and me groups, those are like, oh yeah, take this supplement, take that herbal remedy, take this, take that, and here's my doTERRA, and here's this, and all that other shit, right? No different than those that are in Africa, Indonesia, Asia, other places, selling you their herbal remedies and recommending their doctors for some kind of issue that you have. That's leveling the playing field, right? When everybody out there now is doing the same thing, selling you some kind of antibiotic. However, you have been provided with another argument to consider, which is you do not have to die someday. Can you imagine those in Africa who are just coming upon this information, or do you see when getting leveled up to Western society, being told that you didn't have to die someday? Your mom and dad didn't have to die when they died. They didn't have to die. You don't have to die. They're like, what? They think you're like some devil. Because already there's allegory that anyone that's like immortal is like the devil. They're a vampire. So already that whole resistance to immortality was built into stories of devil and werewolves and demons and all that shit, right? And so already the African influence in Africa has already cast a spell of dying someday to their audience. No different than even indigenous populations. You're supposed to die someday. Here, take all my remedies. I'm the shaman. I will fix you. And so, all of you who have been exposed to my information have the opportunity to counter the spell of controlled lifespan if you choose to. Africans in Africa probably cannot even wrap their mind around my information, but the West will have an edge over them. Realize the gifts are being given to you. So that's why I posted those pictures of the Africans playing the game of, I'm going to be an influencer and here, be like me. There'll be rap artists, philosophers, socialites, sports stars, family, influencers, models, dating, sex, everything that we've done. And so, and that was in response, and I'm going to read this. 2023, Middle East, infertility, cancer, died suddenly. 2045, infertility, World War III. 21 years between World War I and World War II. There was 21 years between World War I and World War II. World War I ended in 1918, World War II began in 1939 and lasted until 1945. Approximately 21 years between Vietnam War and 9/11. Okay? Approximately 21 years between 9/11 and COVID-19. The Vietnam War, ritual of depopulation, sexual revolution, civil rights, women's rights, and the conservative movement, building up the family. War was the depopulation agenda. We've only just begun, okay? And so the population boom will turn into population bust. Africa will have their own population boom, and then they're adopting our Western ways, modern medicine, natural remedies, surgeries, and of course, all the wealth. And so there'll be population bust. Okay, so I read that, I did that the last video, but that's what I was referring to. All right? And then the West has the edge over Africa, which is up and coming. When you can see in the future now what that is priceless. I wish I had me back in 1995. I would have made different choices. However, my past made my future and gave you guys the potential for surviving this reset. Some of you have the opportunity to see in the future, but you are too clouded by the shit of your past and your ancestors. And that is too bad. Too bad you will squander away your edge over someone else because of your personal incontrovertible beliefs and lifestyle. And so when you're upset in Hawaii because of what happened in Lahaina, you survived. Now it's time for you to evolve. If you can't evolve and you're in Hawaii, I hope that you can't have anyone to blame but yourself, okay? So I said, too bad you'll squander away your edge over someone else because of your personal incontrovertible beliefs and lifestyle. Too bad for your kids. They will suffer the most and not survive, unfortunately. And if you think I'm casting spells on you, I'll tell you the spell you already cast upon yourself and your family is far stronger than the gifts I give to the world. If I'm that influential, maybe you're just weak. That's not my fault. And so what does incontrovertible mean? It means not able to be denied or disputed. And so when you have a belief system, everyone should die someday, and you have to pray to some kind of God or whoever, and no one can tell you anything different because they're wrong, they're bad, they're the devil, they're the demon, that's what will do you in. That's what you will die from. And so I said, we're in the 5th industrial revolution, from boom to bust. Okay? So from the projected 12.9 billion to 500 million Georgia Guidestones by 2100, maybe. America started off with 3 generations. And so we have 5 sets of 3 generations of evolution. And so we're in the 5th industrial revolution. So we had the transcendental, the gilded, and the progressive age back around 1776. And then you had the missionary, the lost generation, and the GI generation, the second group of 3 generations. And now we have the silent generation, the boomers, and the Gen X right now, as well as the Xennials, Millennials, and the Gen Zs. And then the 5th last generation for this 5th industrial revolution is the alpha, the betas, and the gammas. And that's by 2050. All right? So from 10,000 BC Neanderthals to Homo sapiens to then 2050 AD Homo sapiens. And it has to do with the V's, or immunizations, and the food. It's going to give us then the most civilized evolutionary person. And regardless of sexual orientation, that's what's going to be happening in the future. Will your kids survive this great reset? And so I wrote this, and so I made a picture, and that was that picture that I posted. I didn't make a picture, but I developed a model that showed you the 5 sets of three generations from 1776. Everything is aligned. 5 sets of 3 generations, boom to bust. You don't have to bust, but there's some of you who will. The World Economic Forum actually cares about you. Most people don't even care about themselves because it's obvious in the population. They get all of the warnings, but they still ignore the warnings. You can't make people care about themselves. You really can't make people like themselves. Most people out there, I'm serious, don't like themselves, and it shows by how they take care of themselves. And so what is the 5th Industrial Revolution, also known as Industry 5.0, is a new phase of industrialization that involves humans working alongside advanced technology and AI-powered robots to improve workplace process. It incorporates concepts such as sustainability, not disposability, right? Human-centeredness, concern for the environment, harmonious human-machine collaborations, well-being of multiple stakeholders. The 5th Industrial Revolution involves the use of AI, LOT, and big data to transform the industrial structure. For example, AI-powered systems can generate unique designs based upon custom preferences and making trends, improving the overall efficiency of the industry. Continuous process improvement. Okay? And so the goal of 500 million might be by 2100, but a huge scale down must happen by those who don't care about themselves. And you are doing it to your family and your children and yourselves. The West is being given a choice, and so is other countries, but will they have time to figure out how to redirect? Because now that the system knows how fast they can make things happen that quickly, not everybody's going to be able to catch up and get this information as quick. So those in the West have seen what I went through, seen what's going on in the last 100 years, and you can read, and you've seen the evidence, and some of you know me personally. Now you have an edge over those who are in Africa who are just getting on board online. Hello? Listen to indicators or thank you for your service. And so 10,000 BC, the caveman was hot. Then he had to evolve. And so the vaccines could have been a link between the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens, but it was used like the penis and even the different vectors, other vectors. And that was probably all all the raping and pillaging and everything. The penis was a vector. That's why men were developed, because they were the ones to keep adding more information to society. And the women were then developing the babies. They were taking on the information and developing the babies. And so the vaccines could have been a missing link between the Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. But it wasn't the vaccines, it was the penis. How do you bioengineer humans to be extremely smarter and more adaptable? Nature and nurture. And if you resisted, you would die. Or look at all the diacetyl groups out there. People out there resisting themselves out of existence and using remedies against evolution and screwing each other to death. And I'm exposed to everyone who has been in a therapy, and I'm doing fucking amazing. I'm not immune to my environment. I've been around the public. I'm doing amazing. And guess what? The stronger, more adaptable people will screw the weaker ones out of existence. It happened to the Neanderthals as they were bioengineered via immunizations, and then each generational offspring, which could be another person, it could be a man. A man can be an immunizations because he has the vector. His penis holds all the information. The vectors. Men are vectors. People who talk at you and spit at you are vectors. You could be a vector to yourself eating food that has a bunch of information, right? So it happened to the Neanderthals as they were bioengineered via immunizations, and then each generational offspring were altered into becoming more civilized and even carried different features. And then the full Homo sapiens then found the hot Neanderthals caveman and his bulging hairy muscles so attractive and fucked him and his race into oblivion, out of existence. And so again, a penis is an immunization. Here you're getting a hot beef injection of information. Of course, you're wearing a condom, maybe, but you're kissing. You're exchanging bodily fluids. Of course, the weak, hot Neanderthal could not resist the hot, clean-shaven Homo sapien. I'm sure back then, OnlyFans was a hillside of hairy and clean-shaven beauties ripe for marriage or war, raped and pillaged out of existence. It's like the 1970s, Bush versus the clean-shaven, very historical, like what's going on right now. People are being screwed out of existence. Okay, this is the last thing. When you get addicted to the good life, you will sacrifice yourself and your kids to keep that good life going. That is the downfall of humans once they get a taste of the good life. And then you're primed for the decline. The good life only lasts so long. Called died suddenly. Hope it was worth it. Addiction to painkillers, drugs, alcohol, money, friends, family, and religion is a rich man's disease, of which the wealth will destroy you as you keep praising to your gods for all the abundance. All right? And so there's a time to have the good life and there's a time to suffer and support that suffering effectively. And so I will compile this in some way. But now you see everything. Now you see it all. Men are the vaccines in our society. Now women are the vaccines because they will hold the turkey basters or their dildos and their ideas. But women have a far better chance to survive this because they have a good balance of both estrogen and testosterone. And they can release their demons. Men will have to bring in some estrogen, soften up their fucking craziness, and not be so adverse to evolution. But if men want to survive, they're going to have to learn how to soften their edges. And if not, for testosterone will destroy you. Good luck.